Good morning, everyone. Just want to do a quick sound check for those of you on the phone. Patrick, can you hear us okay?
Yep, coming in through clear.
Okay, great. And we can hear you as well. Thank you. So welcome to the Wednesday, August 21st, 2024 Mine Land Reclamation Board meeting. My name is Nell Wareham. I'll be acting as your board chair for this meeting. Let's do a quick roll call here. Stiegelmeier.
Present.
Redmond.
Here.
Mock.
Present.
Ortiz.
Present.
Baker.
Here.
And Jill Nelson is not here. We have a quorum. Okay. Let's do an approval, review and approval of the July 2024 summary of minutes. Any discussion?
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
Second by Baker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. July 2024 minutes approved. Just a reminder for those of you, when you are speaking or seconding or making a motion, please state your name for the notes. It makes it easier to see where we are when we're going back through there. Item number 2, approval of continuances and withdrawals. I don't believe we have any. Is that correct? Okay. None?
None.
Let's move along here to an executive director's office, followed by division director reports. Mock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Director Tim Mock, Deputy Director for the Department of Natural Resources. A couple updates here. One, Parks and Wildlife is meeting in the commission meeting is in Colorado Springs tomorrow and Friday. Governor Polis just recently announced appointments and reappointments to that commission, reappointing Commissioner Touchton and Chair May, and then appointing to the commission Murphy Robinson of Littleton, who's been appointed to serve as a representative of sports persons. He's got a passion for fishing and bird hunting, involved in the big game during his time as a police officer in a region with strong hunting culture. He was previously the deputy mayor and executive director of the Department of Public Safety for the city and county of Denver, where he oversaw police, fire, and sheriff departments and has over 20 years of law enforcement leadership and administration. He owns a portfolio of technology companies and serves as a trustee for the National Western Stock Show. And then also Ty Jacober of Carbondale, who is a distinguished rancher and owner of Phoenix Ranching, a thriving cattle operation across multiple counties, one of the largest producer of grass-fed beef in Colorado. His ranch also produces organic hay, which supplies his own cattle herd. And then Ty and his wife also operate an agro-tourism lodge where they raise sheep, chickens, and pigs, and maintain several greenhouses, and also provide educational agriculture classes for children. We look forward to working with those commissioners on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. Moving to the executive director's office here, we have a new new budget director, John Rattan. He started last week, replacing Carly Jacobs, who has been appointed as our chief financial officer. And then our assistant director for energy and innovation, Aaron Ray, is serving as the interim director for Julie Murphy while she is out on parental leave. We're currently in the process of working with BLM in finalizing several wildlife-focused planning processes, including the solar PEIS, big game RMPA, Gunnison sage-grouse RMPA, greater sage-grouse RMPA, UFO RMPA, and the Grand Junction Colorado River Valley supplemental EIS. Moving on to energy and ECMC. ECMC is coordinating with Parks and Wildlife on the implementation of Senate Bill 212, which requires state agencies to provide additional resources to local governments, tribal governments, and developers to inform development of renewable energy projects. ECMC has notified local governments that technical support from the state is available, and that ECMC can coordinate state agencies to provide that support at the request of local or tribal government. And then we are recruiting for a renewable energy program coordinator, and Parks and Wildlife will be hiring dedicated staff before the end of the year to provide additional capacity related to renewable energy development. Last week, ECMC wrapped up its rulemaking process for deep geothermal energy development. These revised rules incorporate changes based on a series of stakeholder meetings throughout the course of the summer, and the new rules require consultation between operators and Parks and Wildlife in order to identify and address impacts on wildlife resources. Then finally, ECMC will be undertaking a cumulative impacts rulemaking beginning September 3rd and a carbon sequestration and produced water rulemaking later in the fall of 2024. Moving on to water, the Bureau of Reclamation recently launched a new grant program funded by the IRA aimed at environmental and watershed restoration projects in the upper Colorado River Basin states of Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming. A second grant program drawn from the same pot of $450 million is expected in the fall with a focus on multi-year water conservation projects also in the upper basin states. And then there's been a huge amount of interest in applications for our Wildfire Ready Watersheds program, which was funded through a special release of the Colorado Watershed Restoration Program. CWCB has awarded $6.6 million of the $10 million available of funding to support 13 wildfire ready action plans, 8 projects and 2 studies. And then for those communities that still might be interested, the application submittal deadline is September 30th of this year. Moving on to tribal updates, DNR has been actively tracking potential legislative concepts which have been discussed by the newly formed American Indian Affairs Interim Study Committee. Thus far, some of the topics discussed of relevance to DNR include providing free state park access to tribal members, dual classification of bison as wildlife and livestock, tribal water rights, and tribal fee waiver for hunting and fishing licenses. During last week's American Indian Affairs Study Committee, our Assistant Director for Tribal Affairs, Stacy Coleman, presented on ways that CPW and DNR are working on natural resources issues of interest to tribal members. And then finally, State Land Board, during last week's State Land Board meeting in Salida, staff led a tour highlighting Badger Creek State Land Board parcel. This is our state trust land parcel. This tour featured recent watershed restoration work, enrollment in CPW's hunting and fishing access program, and conservation measures being taken under enrollment in the Stewardship Trust program. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report this morning.
Thank you so much. What's going on? Any questions or comments? Mr. Cunningham?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Wanted to start with informing you about an NPR story that aired on Marketplace on July 30th. Maybe some of you have heard of it. If you didn't have a chance to hear it, the story featured the Inactive Minds program director Jeff Graves and Jeremy Reinke, one of our amazing project managers. The story was a little bit about the legacy and history of mining in Colorado and some of the safety hazards and environmental challenges that those features pose. And it highlighted mine closure projects near Maryland Mountain in Gilpin County. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, check it out. You can find it on Marketplace, or if you want to email Cammie, we can send out a link to folks so you can listen to that story. Last month, I informed the board that we are going to be moving forward on an audit for the Mine Subsidence Protection Program. On August 5th, the Legislative Audit Committee voted on the Office of State Auditor's recommendation to perform that audit and unanimously approved that. Staff has an entrance conference scheduled with the Office of the State Auditor on September 12th, and I'll continue to provide updates as we move through that process. On August 15th, I had the pleasure, along with Minerals Program Director Russ Means, of attending a meeting with the Western Small Miners Association in Natarita. The Western Small Miners Association, as the name implies, is comprised of small miners with an interest in hard rock and uranium mines in Western Colorado. So it's a really good opportunity to sit down and meet with that group and listen to some of their concerns and challenges that are facing them in that part of the state, and certainly a unique set of challenges for their operations. And lastly, I am excited to inform the board that Division staff has been working on some proposed legislation for next session, 2025. We started working on that earlier this year. We did receive approval from the governor's office to advance our legislation. Senator Simpson has requested bill title on this through the Water Resources and Agriculture Review Committee. They will be taking a vote on whether to move this forward as one of the committee's 10 bills on September 18th. And they have a total of 15 bills that they're going to be considering. And so I'll just share a little bit about what is in this bill. There's three different portions of it. The first deals with a new permit that I'm referring to as a waste pile reclamation permit. So this would be a new hard rock type permit. It would be similar to our 110-1 category in that it would have certain limitations. It would be applied to sites that are 2 acres or less, processing 70,000 tons or less per year. There's other restrictions that will be on this waste pile, such as no processing. It wouldn't be appropriate for a site with an adit that has discharging water. Really, this is geared for and designed for the legacy mining that is in Colorado. All of the waste piles that we see throughout the state. This is an effort to try to incentivize some of that cleanup and streamline that process. So we're very excited about that. The second component of this bill is full membership into the Interstate Mining Compact Commission. Shared a little bit earlier this year about some of our involvement with IMCC. We had an opportunity to attend their annual meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. But as a reminder, IMCC functions as a multi-state recommendatory government organization. They were established in '71, and they represent natural resource environmental protection interest of the member states on both coal and non-coal or hard rock mining issues. The purposes of the compact are to advance the restoration of land, water, and other resources affected by mining through the encouragement of programs in each of the member states. So currently they're made up of 26 member states. We are the lone associate member, and by becoming a full member, it does require the member states to enact legislation, which is why this is a part of the bill. But it'll also give us a full seat at the table and allow us to have seats on some of the committees and really provide us with an opportunity to advance some of Colorado's issues on a national level. So we feel that's a very important compact to be a part of, and we derive quite a bit of value as being a member. The last component of the bill has to deal with some changes to the financial warranties within both the construction materials and the Hard Rock Acts. This legislation is designed to streamline the administration of forfeited funds by placing all revoked reclamation funds within the program that has the responsibility for oversight of reclamation. This was a lesson learned out of the Schwartzwalder revocation and forfeiture. The statute currently requires that 5% of those forfeited funds get placed into a separate account for administrative purposes. All this does is just puts 100% of those funds into the Inactive Mines program fund so that they have all of that available for reclamation at a site. Some additional changes that we're seeking are to remove outdated financial warranty options from the statute by eliminating the use of real property and salvage value as forms of financial warranty. This is a form of financial warranty that we have not seen used in the past 30 years. So we're looking to remove that. And lastly, the bill would limit real and personal property to only the largest operators that can utilize such a bond. This is in part given the volatile nature of those markets that does create some substantial risk for the state. And further, this is a very time-consuming process to go through. So we have not had very many operators take us up on this, but we're just seeking to limit it to those operators that have the ability to really go through this process and provide annual updates each year. So as I mentioned, we're just waiting for that September 18th vote with Water Resources and Agriculture Review Committee. If it advances as one of their 10 bills past that, we'll come back and we'll do a more in-depth presentation for the board. And that concludes my update, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? What's going on? Nice work, thank you. All right, so we have 4 items on the agenda today. The first one being item number 4, depending on which version of the agenda you have, but it's been updated to a consent item. This is file number M-2014-28. It's an extension of a due date. Ms. Gibson, I don't know if you have anything to, the chairs are like, anything that you need to say about it or any?
No, we recommend that it gets extended.
Okay,
They're almost done with it.
okay,
And it's a couple weeks to submit it.
sounds good. That sounds fair. So I would be looking for a motion, or if anyone else has any questions about this one for Ms. Gibson. Otherwise, asking for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Mock and a second from Baker. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you so much for that insight and we will approve the extension date for item number 4. Item number 5 here, we have, this is consideration for the extension of the October 1st, 2024 reclamation deadline. We'll be hearing from Lucas West. This is file number M-1977-248, M-1977-297, M-1978-342 for Gold Eagle Mining. Mr. West and any of those of you from the operation that intend to make a presentation. Can we all swear to tell the truth for those of you that are in the room? Anytime you
Yes.
swear to tell the truth, Mr. Quorum. You swear
I
to tell-
do.
You? Okay.
My wife might be listening.
And then, just a reminder, when we're talking, please introduce yourself so we know who we are in the notes. Thank you.
Right, let's get this guy fired up here.
The hardest part, right?
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Lucas West out of the Grand Junction Field Office. I am,
Just like,
They're not in the meeting. You didn't share your screen. So.
share my screen with whom? Oh, right.
it looks like you're sharing your screen.
I was just saying, I see it up there. I always forget that the peanut gallery is there.
So that we can get into this meeting. Is that what you know?
Oh, yeah. You only showed me this 2 hours ago.
See the calendar. You should have an invite there. Or to the Zoom invite. Okay. Okay, what's that? You should have got my.
Should go here. There.
There.
Here we go.
Okay, so go ahead and open Zoom.
Start bar. That ZM right there. Now we're going.
We get to change this again in 5 months. But you're not Clayton, are you?
What's that? Yeah, it happens. Because I'm sitting right here.
I know.
You walk out.
Good. Okay, just gonna put that. Open.
Here you go.
She's going, don't X out of that. Nope, don't X out of that.
You're good, you're good, you're good.
Yes.
There we go.
You know how-
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure.
Yep. Tammy, do we want to continue without audio on this machine? Is it kind of these
Right,
guys?
this is the other. So
Got it.
just continue on.
They're good on the screen. Patrick, you can see.
No.
No.
Let me share my screen and then just ensure that they can hear as well. There we go.
All good on this end, and I can hear you.
You can hear and see us?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no
All
problem.
right. We are in business. So as I was saying, my name is Lucas West. I'm an environmental protection specialist out of the Grand Junction Field Office. Presenting this item today. Our item is a formal public hearing for Gold Eagle Mining for 3 separate sites. We have the JD5, which is permit number M 1977-248, the Burroughs Mine, M 1977-297, and the Ellison Mine, M 1978-342. Slide 2 is our nature of hearing today. This hearing is for consideration for an operator request for an extension to the previously board extended reclamation deadline for those 3 sites. And all 3 of these sites are 2 of the 3 sites are located in San Miguel County and 1 in Montrose. All of them lie on lands administered currently by the Department of Energy. Slide 3 is the applicable statutes to this section, or this presentation rather. The most important one is the latter, which is 34-32-112 parent 7. The specific portion is the last sentence that each phase of reclamation is to be completed within 5 years after the date the operator advises the board that such phase has commenced, as provided in the introductory portion of section 34-32-116, parent 7, parent Q, except that such period may be extended by the board upon a finding that additional time is necessary for the completion of terms of the reclamation plan. Slide number 4 is a little bit of background information. Some of you may or may not remember, we were here in February of 2024 with a similar request. The previous reclamation deadline for these 3 sites was March 18th of 2024. We received the board's order on May 3rd, 2024, which reset the reclamation deadline to October 1st. Since that time, the operator's run into some troubles. So on July 7th, the operator submitted a request for hearing for a second reclamation deadline extension. And that requested extension is to have reclamation completed by October 30, 2025. Slide 5 and the next couple of slides will be just a brief overview of each site. The JD5 mine is a 112D1 permit that includes 10 acres. The remaining reclamation on the site includes some structure demolition and removal. Some of those are slated for on-site disposal, others for off-site disposal. We are engaged in conversations about doing some revisions to the permit to allow some of those structures to remain as permanent features. Once we get concurrence from DOE, that's an easy change to make, but not a whole lot left to be done. Additionally, they do have some areas that need some topsoil replacement and revegetation on the JD5. Slide 6 is the Burroughs mine. This one is, back up real quick, the JD5 mine is located in Montrose County. These next 2 are the ones in San Miguel County. So the Burroughs mine is a 110 permit that encompasses 9.9 acres. Really, the remaining reclamation task at the Burrow mine is installing a safety fence and removal of a couple legacy items. The struggle on this one is there's some seasonal use restrictions with wildlife things and some DOE requirements, so not much left to get done at the Burrow. Similarly to JD5, slide 7 is for the Ellison mine, but this is a 110 permit located in San Miguel County that includes about 9 acres. The remaining reclamation at this site includes some grading, topsoil replacement and re-veg. We do have the portal and shop structure on site, but we are in conversations with allowing those sites or those features to remain as post-reclamation features. So once we get that done, really the only thing that'll be left to do at that site is regrading topsoil and revegetation. Slide 8 is just a summary of the financial warranties for each of these sites. For each of these 3 sites, the division holds a token $100 bond as is allowed by the Act and rules. The remainder of the financial warranty is held by the Department of Energy. Each one of them has been recently reviewed and is sufficient to complete reclamation. And staff recommendations is that the divisions not oppose this reclamation requested extension. And with that, I can take any questions that the board may have for the division, and then we can kick it to the operator.
I guess just a confirmation, given that this is worth tail end of summer, I'm guessing that these are not really year-long projects. This is construction season number 2 is what we're trying to accomplish.
That's correct,
Right.
ma'am. I believe it's only a matter of a couple of days worth of stuff at each site.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple weeks at one or the other. So not a lot of length of time of work that needs to be done, but because we are nearing the end of the construction season and there is some seasonal use restrictions when it comes to wildlife habitat from the BLM, because the DOE lands are kind of tricky.
Right.
They're managed by DOE, but also have to comply with BLM regulations. So we kind of do this dance. So that's what's really holding us up.
I just have a question about remaining structures. Permanent structures will remain
Yes, ma'am.
forever? I mean,
For the life of the DRMS permit, some of the features are related to mining operations, and in conversations with the Department of Energy, they are in support of leaving those structures so that somebody else may come in and assume those leases on DOE lands and utilize those structures. So we would confer closely with them, and some of them have historical value in terms of legacy mining heritage in the area. So we're checking all those boxes to make sure. But as I said, those revisions haven't been done yet, and we would make sure to check all those boxes prior to approval.
that was my other question. What's a legacy structure?
It's something that, yeah, it's a legacy structure that implies it was, historic mining that's kind of still somewhat being used today, but dates back that people enjoy the cultural tourism associated with those sites. So in some instances, we have allowed those structures to stay for their cultural significance.
From your answer, it's possible that this mine would be reopened, is that?
It's possible through the,
Is that the logic for leaving some of these structures?
yes, sir. Any other questions for myself?
I guess just, you're not the only jurisdiction over this situation. DOE, is certainly different. Are they in favor of kind of this timeline as well and in alignment with what you're proposing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, we received correspondence, I believe, what was it, just late last week or early this, from the representative from DOE, that they're in full support of this, because they are going through their environmental checklists, making sure everything is good on their end and conferring with the BLM. So we're all making sure that everybody's square before we move forward.
Okay.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Any questions for the operator?
Yeah.
Did you have anything?
Is the mine on BLM property?
Which one, sir?
Any one of the 3?
So we have, it's kind of an interesting situation. So the land, it was originally administered by the BLM, but when the Department of Energy took over the lease tracts, they assumed jurisdiction over that. So the scheme, how it works now is DOE has permitting authority over BLM. However, when the mining ceases and everything is done, those leases are terminated and it will be turned back over to BLM. So it has to meet both BLM and DOE standards at the same time.
So the property is not privately held.
No,
Well, a portion of one of
2 of the
it is.
3 are,
Some of it is.
2 of the 3 are privately held.
Okay.
Yes. And there's some the mineral estates are split ownership as well. So on the privately held ones, that's part of the reason why DOE is involved in those. But so yes, it kind of dovetails off of Ms. Wareham's question that we have multiple layers of jurisdiction that we are working with.
I'm a little confused. So some of the sites are privately
Yes.
owned, but under BLM and DOE jurisdiction. How's that? I mean, it's a red.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'll let Don
Yeah,
answer that one.
the answer.
How much time you got?
Yeah, sorry.
So yes, we have some of them that the surface is administered by DOE, which is an executive agency for BLM. They'll turn the land back over, that surface and minerals as well. Some of the other sites have privately held land with federally owned and controlled minerals. So split estates get a little weird. And so we have to dance with all the levels of jurisdiction when we're dealing with those. So it is a bit confusing, yes.
It's almost kind of like a reverse of when we're proposing a new 112C permit. And yes, there's elements that sort of this division can oversee, but then there's all the other, the county and wildlife and all that. This is sort of the reverse of that, where this is what we have oversight to. They're not opposed to this thing, but there's still other layers that you know, the mines are going to have to get either across the finish line or to a finish line that looks like the right stage for potential use or future use of these lands, so that it's safe and reclaimed to where it is now. So
Yes, ma'am.
that's where we are in this one. This is what the tail end of this looks like when you
Right.
get to.
And it's clear as mud.
Yep.
Don, did you have anything else?
Well, I was gonna say, this is kind of a bureaucratic nightmare. We had 4 permits to begin with. And I have Rich Ziegler, what's his father time as far as the uranium industry is concerned, over 50 years, and with the Cotter Corporation. And but you know, we always had a situation of where we would meet with the DRMS, the DOE, and the BLM, and we'd go out and say, well, this is what the project needs, and you know, this is what we do. We go do it. So that the one that was released last year in February, that's how the reclamation was done. So assuming that a lot of this is going to happen, since 2 out of 3 are on private land, and was not sure why I was subject to all of those regulations, but DOE has just come up with a new program of environmental checklist, which is far beyond the 3808, 3800 and 3809 standards. As an example, I've probably spent $35,000 on consultants. To spend $2,500 on an archaeological study on an ore bin to see if there's any artifacts. I assure you, if they were there, they were already destroyed. We've been in the environmental checklist since December of last year. Still do not have one approved. After that is approval, it has to go to before the BLM because there's some issues there. One of the issues they've mentioned, the fence around the ore bin. Talking to Ed Cotter, who was the DOE rep for many, many years, says you can't do that. That'd be a SHPO violation. So we've got an organization that they're great people, but institutional knowledge is not there. They're learning, they're trying, but they're receiving instructions from DC that is very difficult on them with the time frame of when you can operate is very difficult. So by the time we get the environmental checklist through, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we would hope. And then it's got to go to the BLM and for their review, and then it's got to go back to these guys. And in a technical revision, there is not enough time.
Yeah.
That's all I'm telling you.
Well, we appreciate this presentation and you simplifying it for us. The pictures are really helpful. The outline is really helpful. You know, personally, it gives me confidence just to see that this is kind of broken out. This is what we're actually
Well,
talking
to
about.
complicate things even further, the leases are under transfer to another operator.
So you're the landowner and the operator currently?
Yes.
Yes. But. So back to Mr. Baker's question, is the idea here to be able to reopen them eventually, or is this really?
In order to reopen these sites, they would need to go through a new permitting process. These are legacy permits. Not, well, I don't say legacy permits. They're older permits from the seventies that have been largely inactive for a long time. There has been some unofficial discussions of reopening, having a different company come in, which is what Don was referring to, transferring the leases. So there is that potential, yes, but we would cross that bridge when we get there, and it would involve a new 112 DMO permit application and all the steps that go through that, which would also include DOE and BLM also.
But that would not reduce my obligation to do the reclamation.
Exactly.
Correct, yeah, these permits are reclamation. We'll get them done, wrapped up, and then if somebody wants to come back in and reopen, they would reapply.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Trust means for the division, just for a little bit of historical perspective and stuff for some of our board members that weren't involved in this. We went through a lengthy process and actually quite a couple of lawsuits and other things and stuff here in the last, I don't know, it's been probably about 8 years ago, 5 to 8 years ago. But anyway, a lot of these sites and stuff and that have exhausted their temporary cessation timeframes. So these permits and stuff themselves and stuff are under the requirements and stuff to reclaim because they've exhausted that 10 years. If somebody wants to go back in and mine these sites, then they have to come in and do new permits. And that's the process and stuff that's allowed under the act and the rules. But that's kind of a little bit of the background behind that. And this goes back to the 90s, if you will, even in the 80s and stuff there. So there's quite a bit of history and stuff behind that. That is another rabbit hole we could go down. So, but that I just wanted to give you a little perspective there.
Uh-oh. DOE call.
I'm glad it was your fault and not mine.
Don't answer it. Not right now.
No. Mr. Bach, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. And
I'm trying to get a clear picture
Oh,
of this,
sorry.
but I think how I see it, tell me if I'm wrong. You want us to kind of get out of the way so that you can deal with these other entities and do things properly, but it's complicated.
It's very complicated and, you know, I mean, it's always been a great teamwork and, but new policies have changed. So we're kind of caught in the middle. And like you say, I'm glad you asked a question about that because I've got equipment setting on the ground over there ready to go to work. Could knock that out in a couple of days.
Right.
Mr. Corm, good to see you. I hope you.
Mr. Coram died a long time ago. Let's clarify that right now.
In this, Mr. Lucas, if you want to also kind of respond to this, and I appreciate the chair's question earlier. An October 1st deadline, and I appreciate, we always love seeing you come in, but you've been working with the division in good faith. Things are moving forward. This is dealing with some other entities, essentially, that we're trying to accommodate with the extension here, which is modest, October 1st. Are you comfortable with this, or can we give, or should we be thinking about just in case purposes, a little extra time? What's that look like?
Well, I think you're saying October 1st of 25, and that is more than adequate.
30th of 2025.
Right, so we would be looking at October of next year, yes.
Yeah, we're not comfortable with what we have now.
Right.
We don't
So,
think.
no, that'd be October 21st, 24. Okay, now I'm on the right page.
Okay.
And it's a little bit of that to do, yes, we're coming up on the season, we're coming up on the wildlife piece, but then you kind of getting through your environmental checklist stuff as well, so that you're not doing work to redo work or.
We're
anything
not,
like
we're
that.
not touching it. We
Yeah.
were advised, I took equipment out because like I say, it's on deeded land and they said, no, we don't really want you doing that. I said, but I own the land. Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
DC attorneys don't feel that's, frankly, they're afraid of lawsuits.
So maybe a note just to make
Yeah.
sure that you're also getting
So-
that environmental checklist piece.
My personal country boy attitude is I wanted to bolt through and do it anyway, but I didn't.
But you won't. All right. Good questions. This is definitely one where, you learn something new about these processes every time and incorporate it into how we make decisions and legislation.
Could I make one clarification? They talked about the Western small miners.
Yeah.
Now, I'm one of those, and so I'm not a small miner. I'm a small mining operation, but I'm not a small miner. So I want that.
I think we had that discussion when we were writing the Hard Rock rules, and we weren't sure if the word token was okay as well. We were trying to be inclusive about our wording here. We didn't
Yes.
use token minor
Gotta be very
either, because
careful.
we know that no matter what, it's a lot of work, right? So,
Correct.
yeah, any other discussion here before we entertain a motion here on item number 5?
I make the motion
That,
that we approve the extension.
to approve the extension to,
Oh. Let's see. To,
oh, no,
1977, 248, 1977, 297, and 1978, 342.
and then in a date of October 30th.
I see, to October 30th, 2025.
Right.
Did I get it all?
You got it.
So,
We're happy.
We have a second?
Second, this is Patrick.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we will approve the extension as requested by the operator, and thank you for your time. Thanks for coming over for this, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Is everyone okay on cruising through? We've got a potentially 60-minute one coming up next. Does anyone need a 5-minute break? You good? Everyone's good? Great. The next one up here, number 6, this is hybrid reconsider. We have multiple permits on this one as well. So if it's okay, I won't read all of them aloud. But again, this is an extension of the 5-year reclamation deadlines as mandated by statute. So we've got surface and underground uranium and vanadium, 2-year, again, both in Montrose and San Miguel County. But we're gonna hear from
already sharing.
Lucas. Are you also presenting or just Dustin?
Just us on this one.
Okay.
We split it up for ease of one company goes with one, one company goes with the other.
To keep it uncomplicated.
Trying to make it as complicated as we can.
Whatever you can control to keep it uncomplicated,
Absolutely,
right?
yes, ma'am.
I'd like to point out in my day, I had them all. so.
You had them all. Oh, look at that. And then just a reminder, do we swear to tell the truth?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, anyone who intends to talk, and then as you go along, please just introduce yourself so we have your name captured in the notes. So take it away.
Okay, Dustin Zapla with the division. This is a formal public hearing for Highberry Resources, Inc. For sites.
Oh, wait, do we have, can you guys see this on the screen, Patrick?
No,
No.
cannot.
We're gonna share our screen.
Yeah, but we need a lot of help. We'll work on the technical aspects of this.
I'm telling you.
Yes.
There you go. Oh, it's
There we go.
All right,
All good now.
thank you.
Back to it, okay. Dustin Zapla with the division. It's a formal public hearing for Highbury Resources, Inc. For the sites M 1977-306, the JD9 mine, M 1977-310, the JD6 mine, M 1977-451, the SR11 mine, M 1978-116, the SM18 mine, M 1979-094 HR JD7 pit, and M 1984-014 the CJD8 mine. This hearing is for consideration of Highbury Resources request for extension of the 5-year reclamation deadlines mandated by CRS 34-32-116, parent 7, parent Q. These sites are all in Montrose and San Miguel counties. On February 3rd, 2020, previous operator Cotter Corporation notified the division that final reclamation had commenced. Highbury Resources acquired the permits during the early part of 2021. Right here, I'll just clarify that since Cotter Corporation notified the division of final reclamation in 2020, that would make the reclamation deadline February 2025 for all these sites. The current deadline. Applicable statutes, CRS 34-32-116, parent 7, parent Q. Upon termination of the entire mining operation and in accordance with the reclamation plan, each phase of final reclamation shall be completed within 5 years after the date on which the operator advises the board that such phase has commenced, unless such period is extended by the board pursuant to section 34-32-112, parent 7, which reads, each phase of reclamation is to be completed within 5 years after the date the operator advises the board that such phase has commenced, as provided in the introductory portion of section 34-32-116, parent 7, parent Q, except that such period may be extended by the board upon a finding that additional time is necessary for the completion of the terms of the reclamation plan. Just go through each of the sites briefly. This is the JD9 mine is a 112D1 permit, which includes 26.77 acres. Remaining reclamation consists of a portal closure of 3 vent holes, removal of water treatment ponds and water treatment infrastructure, site grading and seeding. JD6 mine is a 110D permit that includes 6.24 acres. Remaining reclamation consists of a portal closure of 2 vent holes, removal of an office trailer, compressor and compressor building, site grading and seeding. The SR11 mine is a 112D1 permit that includes 13.3 acres. Remaining reclamation consists of a portal closure, removal of the septic system from the old office building area, removal of a water tank, site grading and seeding. The SM18 mine is a 112D1 permit that includes 14.9 acres. Remaining reclamation consists of a portal closure of a vent hole, removal of a compressor building, a large trailer, removal of shop building foundation, site grading and seeding. JD7 pit is a 112D3 permit that includes 504 acres. Remaining reclamation consists of a portal closure, vent hole closure, removal of compressor and water treatment structures, removal of water treatment ponds, grade the waste dump, contour pit walls, and site grading and seeding. And the JD8 mine is a 112D1 permit that includes 20.1 acres. Remaining reclamation consists of a portal closure, removal of a water tank, shop trailer and compressor, site grading and seeding. Vision and DOE hold the following financial amounts for each of the sites. The JD9 mine, the division holds $100. DOE holds $218,950 for a total bond amount of $219,050. For the JD6 mine, the division holds $100, while DOE holds $46,100, or STIPO. They hold $46,000 for total bond amount, $46,100. The SR11 mine, division holds $100, while DOE holds $65,000 for total bond amount of $65,100. The SM18 division holds $43,672. DOE holds $44,000 for total bond amount $87,672. JD7 pit division holds $131,007, while DOE holds $1,514,293 for total bond amount of $1,645,300. And the JD8 mine, the division holds $29,950, while DOE holds $40,000 for total bond amount of $69,950. These bond amounts are in good standing with the division and DOE. Staff recommendation, staff recognizes other agency requirements must be met, therefore have no issue with the requested extensions allowed by act and rule. Then I will just clarify difference between the Gold Eagle sites. All of these sites are on DOE managed lands, MBLM. These are no patented sites, this grouping here. Field any questions if you have any?
I just had a quick question on the JD7 pit. I couldn't tell from the photo. That water treatment pond, is that a water treatment pond that has water in it, or is it a water treatment pond in terms of the space that was created to treat it?
These palms on the right there.
Yeah, does that have water in it?
No, those are liners.
Those are liners, okay. My question was,
Old
how
liners.
do you remove a water treatment pond if it is a pond? But
Yeah.
if it's not a pond anymore, then you're removing the liners and probably.
The liners and
some
contaminated
grading and-
material.
Okay. Questions from the board on this?
Similar deal to what we had the last time.
Yeah.
Yes, and just to be clear, except I'm struggling to find my dates this morning. What are we extending? What's the extension to?
2027.
Yeah. To 12/31/2027,
So the current one is February 2025.
or
Yes.
we could do 5 years to February of 2028. Or, basically, and maybe I should back up. My name is Doug Beam. I'm here on behalf of Highbury Resources through their parent company, Anfield Energy, where I'm the operating officer. I have a dual role. I'm the ex-president and owner of BRS Inc. and a consulting engineering company in Wyoming. We've done work with Anfield over the last decade or so on various projects. They asked us to help in this situation beginning in February to meet the environmental checklist requirements. So we've been involved since then. But you know, as the previous speakers were talking, there's a lot of complications and that affect the schedule to do this thing. The injunction was mentioned. It ran from 2011 to 2019, so nothing was done. Highbury had 2 full-time employees in Nucla working on that, working on the sites, trying to do what they could. After that, up until July of 2023, when DOE said, stop working, we need the environmental checklist and all this stuff for NEPA requirements. They set a deadline of the end of February 2024 to meet those requirements. My company BRS was brought in by Anfield early February to help out, and we did meet that deadline. And since that time, we've been going through a variety of revisions of the environmental checklist with DOE. We've also commissioned NEPA related studies with respect to teeny wildlife, vegetation, and cultural. And so far this year, as of a month ago, was last time I looked, Anfield has spent $330,000+ on all those studies
Yeah.
and whatnot. All of that information is now finally in front of DOE. We believe we've reached a resolution on the environmental checklist. The last piece of the puzzle was the cultural, which they got August 9th. That took longer. The studies were done in late spring, early summer, but we had to go through the report and the ship concurrence before it was submitted to DOE. Out of all of that, our realistic construction window is May to October. So some of these, particularly the underground mines, are bat habitat. So we cannot work on the portals and vents after October 1st. And then we have raptor restrictions and big game wintering restrictions. So we have a very limited window. At this point in time, we do not have any categorical exclusion or anything else, any findings from DOE that we can actually start work. If we were to receive those, we might be able to do some work this fall.
Right.
But that's anybody's bet.
You said with those May to October is your
May to October,
window,
depending on the site,
depending on the site, because you've got all these wildlife restrictions plus weather,
plus, yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. So, as you can see from what Dustin was saying here, a number of like the underground closures and site regrading, that's fairly straightforward, not particularly difficult. And we are hopeful that we will see under the NEPA either CADX determinations or FONSIs or something like that that allow us to proceed work. The pit is a more complicated issue, and we're expecting to have to go through a full EA. And so that's why its timeframe is extended in our schedule. And we did provide a schedule to DRMS with our request back in May.
For those that may not know, do you want to say what a FONSI is?
Finding of no significant impact.
So that's kind of helps.
I'm
make
sorry,
things-
all the acronyms.
I know, they're fun. So, yeah, and I mean, looking at your timeline too, February 3rd, 2020, not an ideal, month.
Physically not possible, and we can't physically work
You,
today.
you weren't working, you had 2 employees on site. I know we ran into this with a lot with some other COVID impacts. And then the environmental checklist comes out July 2023, so you kind of have to stop and refresh all of those. So, I guess the thing is, we look at these from 5-year timelines, but it's never like 5 years on the ground doing active work. If you look at this current timeline, we've got February 2025, you threw out the date of the 2027, but you were also suggesting maybe a full 5 years.
I believe the
Is there
request
proposed-
was for 5 years. We felt we could on our schedule get done by the end of 2027.
The end of 2027. Like December 31st, 2027.
Right.
Because you think, when were you thinking you're gonna kind of have some clarity on these checks pretty soon here?
We hope so. We've been meeting with DOE on it.
Yeah.
We think we have clarity, but we do not know how long they will take. They
Right.
have primacy on the NEPA process. We're not sure how long that's going to take and what their determination will be coming out of that.
So if you assume that you don't get that to really do anything until after October, it would still give you a couple seasons
Right.
if we shoot for that 2027.
And we would think like the underground, we could complete all of those in the construction season next year.
Right.
And the pit, like I say, it's going to involve an EA, which takes time. So
That would happen within the same timeframe? Doing the EA?
yeah, the pit would, and I don't know if they shared the schedule. I have some copies of it.
It's in your
I think it's.
board packet.
Yeah.
But the pit work would be in 2025 and 2026.
And Dustin, similar to this previous situation where we had 4 permits and then we were able to pull one off. Is this a situation too, where say something's more underground or something's a little simpler or not caught up in something where we can say this is reclaimed? Instead of, you know, there's a pretty long list right now. Is there a chance that some might be able to fall off earlier?
Yeah, so all these sites are fairly small except the JD7.
JD7 is the one that's probably gonna be,
So they could, as they complete reclamation at those smaller sites, we can release them.
Okay.
Be done with those. And I guess if we do the extension to 2027 and they're not done, we come back for request another extension. It just may be one site at that time.
what's your current cadence between the two of you, sort of as these are going along? Do you, you know,
My staff interacts with us.
interact pretty well, kind of give him some timelines of, hey, this one's going well, or this one's got a hiccup, or
Yes.
where he's got an idea?
2012, 2013 timeframe, the division approved reclamation plans for all these sites. They also need DOE approval to do the reclamation, which they don't have yet, so. The division regularly meets or discusses with DOE where they're at. We do the annual inspection together. And BRS has been brought onto the scene recently, last year. February, and they've been good at communicating what they've submitted to DOE and where they're at. Getting approvals. The approval timeline is it's out of our hands and out of their hands once it's submitted.
I have a question, same question. I'm afraid of the answer. Are these privately held sites?
No, these are all
These are actual public
DOE
land.
properties, and BLM.
So these are actually owned by public agencies.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I'm curious about the December 31 date. You can't do on-site work after October for the most part, but would that enable you November, December to do other kinds of paperwork or whatever?
Right, and actually on the open pit, the October restriction is bats through the underground. So the open pit, the restriction that kicks in is wintering range.
Okay.
So it kicks in first part of December. So we'd have a little bit larger window for the open pit. But I think that's just the convenience of the calendar or Gantt chart.
Any other questions?
So like NEPA didn't kick in when all this was originally permitted, or these are all new? I mean, excuse my ignorance, but I'm trying to figure out why all of a sudden.
Right, yeah, this is
You need a CADX or an EA. And
Russ
all the
meet,
NEPA
yeah.
stuff.
The Russ means for the division and stuff, and we're talking about 2012, 2000 timeframe and stuff. The DOE was under an injunction. There was a lawsuit and stuff on their programmatic assessment and stuff that was done in 2009. But they were under an injunction that didn't allow any activities on these sites whatsoever. So there's a huge time frame and stuff on the calendar that is just dead space. And that, but part of that was some of the NEPA and stuff that was done and stuff in that process and stuff, and that was challenged by outside groups. And through that process and stuff, they had to reevaluate, redo that. 2015 is when the injunction was lifted.
19.
When's that?
2019.
2019 and stuff in that. So-
March 18th, 2019.
Yeah, and that, so, and that's where now things are starting to try to get caught up and stuff. So the DOE has its processes, some of the areas and stuff that they have, these checklists or stuff are related to what came out of those findings and those lawsuits. So that's where there's this catch-22 for not only this board and the division, but also the operator, and that we went through and did some of our paperwork. During that time, we got our environmental protection plans in place and that, but unfortunately DOE couldn't take a look at them and stuff that because of the injunction. They were basically for legal reasons and stuff told and stuff to stand down on everything. So they've been trying to scramble over the last couple of years and stuff to get things back up to speed and comply with their own current regs and stuff, which has kind of created, well, the situation we're in now.
Which is the checklist.
Correct, yeah. So, yeah, so there's new NEPAs, and new requirements and stuff there, so, hopefully, some of that can be done relatively quickly, but the JD7 is the big hang up there. Most, as noted, most of the other work and stuff that can be done in a season or so. And that, but the JD7, I actually showed Michael that, last week, and stuff is a little bit of a different animal, so.
Other questions? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah,
You good?
I think we said it.
Yeah, okay. Would anyone like to entertain a motion and a date? The end of your page here. It's not left.
Well, I will attempt a motion.
Good.
Um,
I wasn't going to.
To approve an extension of the 5-year reclamation deadlines for all those numbers
On the screen.
Yeah, it's on the.
for 1977-36, parens JV 9 mine, for M 1977-310, JD 6 mine, M 1977-451, parens SR 11 mine, M 1978-116, parens SM 18 mine, M 1979-094 HR, parens JD 7 pit, M 1984-014, parens C JD 8. To an extension date of 12/31/27.
Or was it 20? You wanted the full 5 years?
Yeah, 26.
I think the official request was a full 5 years
Yeah.
in February, but.
You want 20,
Either-
28?
So
From 2024, I
12/31.
guess, to 2029. That gives us a lot of, more time, I think, than we should need, but if we're delayed in the process of EAs and whatever, perhaps that's safer, but
Current deadline is February 2025,
correct.
5 years,
Okay.
2030.
Okay, I
I'm not
amend
good.
the motion to extension date 12/31/29, which is 5 years.
I second it.
That would actually be 4 years.
yeah, so
The current
5 would be
deadline is
30.
2025.
See, current deadline, because on February 3rd, 2020, the operator notified the division, so that makes the current one February 2025. The request is to extend the reclamation deadline as mandated, extension of the 5-year reclamation deadline,
So should I make it February?
30,
February 3rd.
2030.
Okay, February 30th. 20.
There's no 30th in February.
Oh,
Is it a leap year?
My birthday, year 2030.
March 1st.
There you go.
Make it March 1st, yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
March 1st, okay, to make it match.
Do me a favor and just the motion, this line and the new date. Requested, recognizing the first. And.
Okay, and another amendment. Um, the staff recognizes other agencies' requirements must be met. Therefore, we don't have an issue with the suggested extension allowed by Acton rule and would like to have that extension date be March 1st, 2030.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Baker second. Any further discussion? All those opposed, or all those in favor? Please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed, same sign? Okay. The motion passes. We will extend, reclamation deadline to March 1st, 2030. Thank you all for your help and your information and best of luck.
Okay, and thank you.
Thank you. I would like to propose a 5-minute break. For Karen's math break. And my math. break.
Been interesting.
Team effort.
It should, you know.
Tammy, when you're done with the screens, can we propose a 5-minute break?
If you guys want to go ahead and
Are
do it.
you okay on things and cameras?
I'm gonna get everything set up for the next one.
Those on the phone, we will resume in 10, oh gosh, math, 10:20. 10:20. You're good, Cammy?
Yep, great.
All right. We are on item number 7. This is a formal public hearing, file M 2023-25 for WW Clyde and Company. This is the Bernard Sand and Gravel Pit. Consideration of the division's recommendations to approve a 112C permit application with objections. We have chunk of time here for this. And we also have a draft pre-hearing order, which I believe we'll probably go over first to set the stage here. So Mr. Quayman's going to act as our pre-hearing officer in this sense. In terms of that, do we want to do the pre-hearing order first? Do we want to do swearing in first? How would you like to go through it?
We can swear everyone in first.
Swear everyone in
Yeah.
first? Okay, because we have 2 folks on the line that I believe.
One.
dropped.
So I don't know if she's gonna come back on,
Okay,
but we do have one on.
okay. So all those who intend to testify, those in the room first, do you swear to tell the truth? Swear to
I do.
read, or- And then this is the operator?
Correct. Yes.
Here, okay? And then on the line, we have at least one, I believe, objector with party status.
Jim.
Can,
His name is Jim.
oh, okay,
There.
can you state your name and swear to tell the truth?
My name is Cheryl Caston. Yes.
Okay. And is Jim on the line as well? Not yet? Okay. Cammy, keep an eye on and see if he rejoins us as we get through this. Okay, so with that, we'll go through the draft pre-hearing order.
Yeah, so I'm Chuck Wyman, I'm counsel of the board, filling in for the pre-hearing officer, Jason Music, who couldn't make it this morning. So we held a pre-hearing conference on July 31st with parties. And kind of, as usual, we try to work through, see if there are any, we went over jurisdictional issues, see if there was any that could be eliminated. There weren't. If you take a look in the draft pre-hearing order, you'll see the jurisdictional issues that are still live for today, which again is, I believe, all of them. Talked a little bit about non-jurisdictional issues and then went through the allocation of time. Just for the board's reference, pre-hearing order starts on, the draft pre-hearing order starts on page 73 of the packet. And then the time allotments, parties agreed to time allotments. And that starts on page 76 of the packet. As usual, I'll keep track of that, but as the board's well aware, like this is just a draft pre-hearing order. And so if there are, you know, objections to the order, or if the board wants to change things, that's obviously within the board's discretion and, you know, the ability of the remaining parties to bring any objections to the pre-hearing order. But if not, then the board can go ahead and vote to approve the pre-hearing order as offered or make any amendments as board sees fit.
And we were fine with the order in which presentations and the objectors and everything was going in terms of rebuttal and presentations and closing statements.
Yeah, no disagreements from the parties on the kind of format and timing.
So what we'll be doing is we'll be hearing an introduction from the division, presentation from the division, presentation from the applicant, presentation from the objectors. Then the division will be able to have rebuttal, objectors rebuttal, so that's flipped, applicant rebuttal, and then closing statements in the order of division, objector, applicant, which is the same as the rebuttal order. Does everyone understand how that goes? Everyone's okay with that?
Yes.
Any other discussion for the pre-hearing order, because we need to move to adopt it. So if there's any discussions or questions, we need to cover that
And this is Chuck Clemeny. One thing I would say is, Jerry Ladd was, an objector who had party status at the pre-hearing conference, and was unable to be here and so lost party status. Jim Grokis was on the call earlier.
Gochis, it's
Gochis, sorry.
misspelled in the.
Ah,
He was
got it.
on earlier, I believe.
He was what?
He might have been on earlier, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and I don't
Somebody
know.
saw him, So.
And then we heard from Cheryl Katzen.
Yeah.
Caston.
Captain, yeah.
So right now, we've got one objector with party status, and I don't know if division heard from Mr. Gokis or.
I've not. I think Cammie's been checking her phone too.
We'll watch the line and see if he comes back on.
That other phone number might have been DOE listening and I don't know.
I'm not sure who it was. I missed the phone number, just kind of hard.
Okay, so currently we have 2 with party status and 1 currently on the line.
Correct.
All right. Do we have any other discussion?
Madam Chair, motion to approve the pre-hearing order.
Motion by Mock,
Second.
second Stiegelmeier. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we will adopt the pre-hearing order. So with that, as just outlined, we are going to hear an introduction from the division and then a presentation from the division.
Madam,
And-
just to
yes.
clarify, so if Mr. Gochis gets on before his presentation, he can remain, keep his party status.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that.
I'm just curious how
Yeah.
that works.
We'll need to make sure he's sworn in, but
Okay,
yes.
yeah,
I'm watching for that.
all right, thanks. All right. My name is Rob Zuber. I'm with the division. Did you want to introduce yourself, Amy?
Amy Eschberger, senior EPS.
So I was the lead specialist on this. So as said, I'm gonna do an introduction to this 112C permit application, file number M-2023-025. The Bernhardt Sand and Gravel Pit. The applicant is WW Clyde and Company. So here's the location of the site. It's about a mile southeast of Milliken in Weld County. You can see County Road 46 there. That's the access to the site. You can see the South Platte River runs along the south and east sides of the site. This is also about 8 or 9 miles southwest of Greeley, if you don't know where Milliken is. So the proposed permit area is 111.01 acres, which is the same as the affected area. Commodities would be sand and gravel. The owner of the affected land is WW Clyde. The mineral owner is also WW Clyde, the applicant. The type of mining proposed is surface or an open pit. The method of mining proposed is to excavate with an excavator, loader, or dozer. All material to the on-site processing facility and then load for transport. The mining plan includes construction of a slurry wall around the excavated area, dewatering of the mine within the lined enclosure in one mining phase. Reclamation of reservoir banks will progress with mining. The estimated life of the mine is 11 years. Post-mining land use is developed water resources, that is the lined reservoir, and the required financial warranty is about $3.55 million. Again, this is a map of the permit area, the red line. I'll be going through some of the details of these features later, but the elevation's at 4720 feet above sea level. This is the proposed mining plan. You can see some of the features: topsoil and overburden stockpiles, the clear water and sediment ponds, the processing area, the dewatering trench. You can see a 400-foot mining setback from the river. I'm going to be talking about that some more. I'll also be talking about the slurry wall, the blue line, and the groundwater drain, which is the orange line. Site access is at the northeast corner. So here's a typical mining section. You can see, as I said, I'll talk about that 400-foot from the river in a few minutes here. There's a You can see the slurry wall and the dewatering trench on this figure. Proposed reclamation plan is for a lined reservoir of approximately 89 acres. And you'll also see revegetated areas around the edges of the reservoir. And you can see a 200-foot wide riprap rundown near the southwest corner. Typical reclamation section, the plan is to mine at a 2-to-1 slope and to reclaim at a 4.5-to-1 slope. This figure also illustrates some of the other features like the slurry wall and the 400-foot setback. So the application filed for review on the official filing date was September 14th of last year. The technical review team comprised of 4 staff members, including myself, who reviewed all the materials and developed the cost estimate. Patrick Lundberg, who I believe is here, he reviewed the groundwater section. And we had 2 geotechnical engineers look at this. First, Tim Kazir did, but he had the nerve to retire, so then Zach Trujillo took over for him after Tim left the division. We issued a total of 4 adequacy review letters and conducted 1 pre-op inspection. And the applicant has satisfactorily addressed all adequacy items identified in the application within the review period. So therefore, on July 11th of this year, we issued a recommendation and rationale for approval. And as I said, the required bond is $3.55 million. So we received timely objections from 6 individuals. We received comments from 3 agencies listed there. DWR, CPW, and History Colorado. All jurisdictional concerns raised by objecting parties were addressed through the adequacy review process as described in our rationale document. And the jurisdictional issues raised by objecting parties were grouped into the following 3 broad categories: notification process, impacts on wildlife, and impacts on the hydrologic balance. 3 objectors attended the pre-hearing conference on July 31st, 2024. So before I go into my more detailed presentation, any questions on my intro? So as I said, this is the Bernhard Sand and Gravel Pit. It's a consideration of a 112C permit application with objections. As I said, the technical review team comprised of 4 DRMS staff members. The application review period extended 7 times at the applicant's request. So the review occurred over a period of 301 days, during which DRMS issued a total of 4 adequacy letters. Some other glasses. As I said, the jurisdictional issues can be categorized into notification process, impacts on wildlife, and impacts to the prevailing hydrologic balance. And within that last category, there were issues related to flooding and to groundwater. So first, let's talk about the issue related to the notification process. The objecting parties have concerns that nearby landowners were not given sufficient notice of the proposed operation. And specific objections are listed in the rationale document. So the division recognizes that notification of neighbors and other members of the public is an important part of the permitting process. Required public notice procedures for a permit application are described in Rule 1.6 and Statute 34-32.5-112, parent 9. So rules 1621D and 1651 and the statute listed there require the applicant to publish a public notice in a newspaper of general circulation in the locality of the proposed mining operation 4 times, once a week for 4 consecutive weeks. Rule 171(2)A specifies the public comment period for 112C permit application
closes 20 calendar days after the last date of the newspaper publication. Rule 1621E in the statute listed there require the applicant to mail or personally serve a copy of the public notice to all owners of record of the surface and mineral rights of the affected land and owners of record of all land surface within 200 feet of the boundary of the proposed affected lands. So Rule 1621B requires the applicant to post notices or signs at the location of the proposed mine site prior to submitting the application to the office for a permit. Provide a signed affidavit with the application that such notices were posted according to the provisions of the rule. Rule 1621C and statute 34325-112, para 9, para A, require the applicant to place for a public review a copy of the application with the clerk and recorder of the county in which the affected land is located and provide proof as required by Rule 6418. So the applicant did publish a public notice in the Johnstown Breeze for 4 dates, the last of which was October 19th. The content of the notice was found to be in compliance with the rules. The public comment period for the application began on the date of filing, which, as I said, was September 14th of 2023 and ended on November 8th of 2023. So 20 days after the last publication. So the public comment period of the application lasted for a total of 55 days. So the applicant also notified nearby landowners, so that all surface owners of record within 200 feet of the proposed affected land are listed below. I'm not going to read all those to you. These folks received the public notice via certified mail, and the names in yellow text are objectors to this application. So the applicant posted a public notice at the proposed mine site and provided a signed affidavit with the application attesting to such. The content of the sign included the required information. The sign was placed at only access from a public road. As I showed you before in the map, that's County Road 46. I took this photo of the sign at my pre-op inspection on November 9th, 2023. Also, the applicant provided proof that a copy of the application was placed with the Weld County Clerk and Recorder for public review. All application materials have been available for public review on the division's website since the application was received on August 3rd, 2023. So even before the date of public filing, of official filing. Some additional points regarding the notification process. The applicant reached out to objecting parties multiple times throughout the application review period to address their concerns and to answer additional questions. The Acton rules do not require DRMS to send notices to adjacent landowners. That is done by the applicant. Once an application is considered filed for review, DRMS sends notice of the application to various local, state, and federal agencies. We did that on September 14th, as I noted. We received comments from History Colorado, DWR, and CPW. And we received timely objections from 6 individuals. So, yeah, after this one. So based on the applicant's actions related to the public notices, the division determined that all notice requirements for the application as described in Rule 1.6 and Statute 34-32.5-112, para 9 were complied with. So any questions on the public notice process before I move on to the next category? Okay. So the second category of jurisdictional issues is the impact on wildlife. Objecting parties have concerns regarding impacts to wildlife habitat, and migration corridors. The specific objections, again, are listed in the rationale document. Comments and recommendations provided by CPW are also in the rationale. So disturbance to wildlife is likely with any significant mining activity, in the proposed Bernhard sand and gravel pits, no exception. Impacts on wildlife from the proposed operation could include temporary elimination of potential habitat within the affected lands and localized displacement associated with noise and lighting from the proposed operation. So the wildlife requirements for 112C permit application are described in rules 318 and 648. So I'm going to go through those. Bear with me when I read some rules to you. Pursuant to Rule 318, Parent 1, all aspects of the mining and reclamation plan shall take into account the safety and protection of wildlife on the mine site, at processing sites, and along all access roads to the mine site. Special attention should be given to critical periods in the life cycle of those species, which require special consideration. You can see some of those there. Pursuant to Rule 3182, habitat management and creation, if part of the reclamation plan, shall be directed toward encouraging the diversity of both game and non-game species, and shall provide protection, rehabilitation, or improvement of wildlife habitat. Pursuant to Rule 648, the application shall include a description of the game and non-game resources on and in the vicinity of the application area, including a description of the significant wildlife resources on the affected land, seasonal use of the area, the presence and estimated population of threatened and endangered species from either federal or state lists, and a description of the general effect during and after the proposed operation on the existing wildlife of the area, including but not limited to temporary and permanent loss of food and habitat, interference with migratory routes, and the general effect on the wildlife from increased human activity, including noise. So to comply with Rule 648, the application included the following. H, included wildlife information. The applicant's consultant, ecological resource consultants, wrote a report, screening report for federal, state listed threatened and endangered species and general wildlife for the Bernhard site. They also wrote a bald eagle nest evaluation. So the first of those reports identified potential federal and state listed T&E species and or habitat that exists on or immediately surrounding the proposed affected land. It also provided a cursory screening of general wildlife use characteristics and existing veg community types. So key items from the ERC report include that agricultural practices have led to degradation of the native vegetation community within the survey area that is within the permit boundary. The South Platte River corridor and the associated veg community provide suitable habitat for wildlife species and migratory bird species, and this habitat will not be impacted by the proposed project. No non-raptor migratory bird nests were observed within the survey area. No non-eagle raptor nests were observed, and no CPW mapped non-eagle raptor nest protection zones are located within the survey area. CPW mapping identifies a bald eagle nest listed as destroyed, being directly northeast of the survey area. Per CPW monitoring logs, the eagle nest was inactive from 2019 to 2021 and destroyed in 2022. Field visit by ERC on January 5th, 2023 confirmed the nest no longer exists and the nest area is no longer being utilized, with no efforts by eagles to rebuild the nest identified. So here's some photographs. The photo on the left is the east side of the site. The river's on the left. This is looking south. The eastern cottonwood floodplain and woodland vegetation community associated with the river is located outside of the proposed permit area. You can see that in the distance, the trees were on the left side. These are inspection photos from my inspection in November last year. The right photo shows rural grasses, non-native weedy species prevalent at the site. So I'm going to talk about the eagle's nest. The map on this slide shows two locations of eagle nests from CPW surveys. The inactive nest shown by the black box is just a few hundred feet from the proposed mine. The mine is basically, you see that section number 24. So the mine encompasses much of the northeast corner of that section. And you can see that eagle's nest with the pin and the black box. That's the inactive nest. The active nest, with the red shown with the red box, is over a half mile from the site. And then these ERC photos of the potential eagle's nest show one's kind of a zoomed in version of the fallen nest, and one's
a broader view of the same nest. So no federally listed threatened and endangered species and or habitat protected under the environmental the Endangered Species Act were identified within the survey area. And the survey area is not within designated critical habitat of any federally listed species. In the state level, no state listed threatened and endangered species and or habitat protected by CPW under Colorado statute Title 33 were identified within the survey area. ERC did not identify any prairie dogs or burrowing owl habitat within the permit area. Therefore, an owl survey was not required. So I want to now talk about the applicant's commitments related to wildlife protection. The 400-foot corridor from the high water mark of the South Platte River will be maintained. This will preserve a migration corridor along the river, so the cottonwood trees and other species along the terraces by the river will be preserved. The final reclamation of much of the site will be a reservoir, which will provide habitat for waterfowl and other species. The design includes some irregular shorelines to further enhance habitat. Disturbed areas around the reservoir will be reclaimed with native grasses, which will be an enhancement to the existing ag uses of the land. The applicant committed to conducting another raptor survey prior to mobilization of earth moving equipment for excavation at the site. Based on the results of the raptor survey, the applicant will coordinate with CPW and update the mining plan as necessary to limit wildlife impacts. So here's an illustration of the 400-foot setback, the blue line there. The permit boundary is the red line. And you can see that, so that aerial imagery shows you that the pit is going to be kept far from the riparian vegetation along the river. So here are some more commitments. During mining, the operation will maintain a minimum of 1 equipment access ramp, typically no steeper than 5 to 1. This will provide an adequate escape route for any wildlife entering the pit. For CPW recommendations, no initial ground disturbance. That's the first year of construction or veg removal will occur between December 1 and April 30. Year-round operations will commence after the initial year. The operation will implement best management practices to protect water quality in the river, and these will be inspected and maintained routinely. No impacts will occur to the small wetlands identified along the southern and southeastern edges of the proposed permit area. Some additional points related to wildlife. Dust impacts will be regulated by CDPHE. The applicant does not propose any new fencing, but if it is added in the future, it'll be wildlife friendly fencing. All disturbed and non-disturbed lands within the permit area will be routinely inspected and maintained to prevent the establishment of noxious weeds. The applicant committed to following all applicable recommendations provided by ERC and CPW to consider the safety and protection of wildlife on the mine site. Habitat management and creation is not a significant part of the proposed reclamation plan, as the primary post-mining land use is developed water resources. Therefore, Rule 3182 is not applicable to this operation. However, the applicant has stated the reclaimed reservoir will create more opportunities for waterfowl in the area. So the division determined that the application satisfied the requirements of Rules 318 and 648 pertaining to the identification and protection of wildlife in the area. So I'll open it up to, you guys have any questions on wildlife protection? Yes, ma'am.
I have one just about bald eagles, because I've been witnessing a lot happening with bald eagles around where I live. And so I guess my question is, are there other bald eagles in the area? And if so, what seems to work where I live is to put up a post and a stand for them to easily build a nest, and lure them away from an area where there's a bunch of construction or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are other eagles in the area or not.
Not that I know. The real issue is the nests, I believe, as far as CPW is concerned.
Right.
If you want, we could open it up to Tyler from ERC. He might want to speak to this a little bit.
I do know, I've seen that before where people build structures
Yeah.
to assist raptors, but I've seen it more with osprey. I'm not familiar with that occurring for bald eagles.
Yeah, we've had it with both osprey and eagles where I live, and they, if you put it in a good place, they'll leave that construction zone and go over to
Yeah.
a more appealing post. And
Yeah, I don't know if that, at this point, we don't think that WW Clyde needs to do that in order to comply with the rules. I mean, if they wanted to do that to be more proactive, I'll defer to them, and see if they want to talk about that. But
You mentioned, yeah, this is Amy with the division too, and these were the two just in correspondence with CPW, actually had some emails back and forth with them too. These were the two nests that they had identified. But we do have this raptor survey commitment, so if they do, see anything then they do have a commitment to work with CPW, possibly Fish and Wildlife if needed. Maybe that would be part of the plan, is to develop something like that. And if they do that, then they would need to revise the plan with us as well. And that's when they would come back and then revise the permit to include any sort of wildlife mitigation or anything like that. So I just wanted to mention that there's still an opportunity to incorporate ideas like that if CPW does have some recommendations in the future.
yeah, and I think it's worth noting that, so the applicant still has other permits to get through. So before, it may be months or years before they actually break ground on this site, if it gets approved through DRMS. So they've committed to this raptor survey. So that would be done. It would be done closer to the time of construction. So that would be more accurate information. And if they identify eagles nests or other raptor nests or other issues with non-raptor birds, then they would have to work with CPW and work with us, maybe alter their mining plan if necessary.
makes sense.
Okay. Anything else on wildlife? I'll move on
Yeah,
to-
this is Patrick real quick. Appreciate the 400 foot corridor there that you're preserving. I was just curious, since it's so close to the South Platte, is there any, this might be upcoming in the presentation, but protection from flooding, on that boundary?
Yeah,
in that
we're about to
corridor?
get into.
What's that?
Yes, Patrick, we're about to get into the hydrology.
Okay.
Issues.
Perfect.
That includes flooding. Yep.
Cool,
So,
thanks.
We'll talk about that, and then if you have questions, we'll address them. Hopefully. So. Turn the page. So the third category, as I said, is prevailing hydrologic balance. Objecting parties have concerns regarding impacts to prevailing hydrologic balance, which include concerns with the potential for flooding of adjacent properties and concerns with groundwater, including impacts on nearby wells. Specific objections are listed in the staff's rationale document again. And also our comments from DWR are also in the rationale document. So the division's committed to balancing the need for mineral resource production within the protection of the environment. And this includes rivers and groundwater resources. The application requirements for the identification and protection of hydrologic resources are described in rules 316, 317, and 647. So rule 3161 requires disturbances to prevailing hydrologic balance of the affected land and of the surrounding area to the quantity or quality of water and surface and groundwater systems, both during and after the mining operation and during reclamation, be minimized. Rule 3177A requires new permit applications to include a groundwater monitoring program on a case-by-case basis where an adverse impact on groundwater quality may reasonably be expected. And 647, parent 2, parent C requires the applicant to submit a plan showing how water from dewatering operations or from runoff from disturbed areas, piled material and operating surfaces will be managed to protect against pollution of either surface or groundwater. And where applicable, control pollution in a manner that is consistent with water quality discharge permits, such as with the Water Quality Control Division, both during and after the operation. Exhibit G in the application. Let me back up. To comply with the rules that I just listed, the applicant included an assessment of the hydrologic conditions. That's Exhibit G in the application. It describes existing surface and groundwater systems at the site, including the following. The long-term average precip at the site is estimated at 14.26 inches. The South Platte River is adjacent to the property and approximately 180 feet from the eastern permit boundary. As you may remember from the map, it was much further from the southern boundary. The depth to groundwater ranges from 3 to 7 feet seasonally within the permit boundary. Groundwater generally flows from southwest to northeast along the direction of the South Platte River, with local data indicating the flow is from west to east. So I'm now going to talk about the applicant's commitments related to potential flooding issues. Proposed mining and reclamation operations will be conducted in a manner that does not cause flooding issues for surrounding landowners. The 400-foot mining setback from the river will be maintained by the operation. This will protect the riverbanks, limiting the risk of capture of the river by the mine pit. The setback is based on ERMS's guidance document, floodplain protection standards for sand and gravel pits adjacent to rivers and perennial streams, which we issued that in February of this year. No berms or walls are proposed for the operation. The reservoir will be constructed below the existing topography and will not cause flooding. A portion of the site is within the 100-year floodway and the 100-year floodplain. The division understands the project will be evaluated for floodplain impacts by Weld County and possibly by the town of Milliken as well. So this map illustrates some of the important features related to surface water hydrology and flooding at the site. You can see the 100-year floodplain and the 100-year floodway. As I mentioned, you can see the yellow lines, the 400-foot mining setback from the river, the South Plattes in the southeast corner there, and is that cyan? The light blue line is the edge of the South Platte River. The red line, of course, is the permit area. So after reclamation, approximate 200-foot wide riprap rundown will be constructed on the southwest slope of the reservoir to facilitate flow of runoff from the west side into the reservoir. The reclaimed reservoir will provide water storage after reclamation, and I have a figure to illustrate those things. You can see the rundown in the 89-acre water surface area. So per rule 6475, the applicant stated that a CDPS permit will be obtained from CDPHE's Water Quality Control Division prior to discharging any water from the site. The operation was designed to prevent runoff from rainfall and snow melt events from causing erosion or loading sediment into the river. In the pit area, runoff will remain in the pit until pumped to a sediment pond designed to allow sediment to settle prior to discharge of the water to the South Platte River alluvium under the CDPS permit. Soil stockpiles will be stabilized with temporary seeding and other practices to prevent erosion and sediment loading to adjacent lands. Prior to long-term vegetation establishment, reclaimed areas will be stabilized with initial cover crops, swales, roughening, and other practices. So some additional things I want to talk about. Flooding before I move on to groundwater. The Corps of Engineers was contacted by the applicant regarding the proposed project and asked for an approved jurisdictional determination regarding the need for a Section 404 permit. The Corps determined that the project site does not contain waters of the U.S. and therefore a 404 permit is not required for the discharge of dredged or fill material at the site. Regardless, the three small wetland areas the application identified along the southern and southeastern edges of the proposed permit area will not be disturbed by the operation based on the proposed mining and rec plans.
Just a
So,
quick question. on
yeah,
that. So
please.
the discharge permit is much more related just to excess water or,
Yeah,
you know, water management more so than use of water for the operation.
right,
Right.
exactly. It'll be so that they'll have a dewatering trench around the perimeter of the pit,
Mhm.
and then that'll collect the water. And then they have to come up with a plan and get it approved through the Water Quality Control Division to discharge that water. And I believe the plan is to not discharge it directly to the river,
Right.
but to discharge it, use a pond or an infiltration gallery or something to discharge it into the alluvium of the South Platte.
like an interceptor canal, kind of as you're dewatering,
Right.
contain it, secondary containment, go there.
I'm gonna move on to groundwater now. There's no more flooding. Or Patrick, did that answer your questions?
No, that was great. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. So to assess the groundwater conditions at the site, detailed site-specific groundwater evaluation is conducted by McGrain Water Engineering. Mr. McGrain's here, I believe. This entailed the use of mod flow, which is industry standard program used for these types of analyses and many other types of analyses. ERMS reviewed and accepted the model inputs, assumptions, and results of the analysis. Elevation changes during the operation of the mine with different groundwater drain scenarios were calculated by the model to determine the potential for mounding and shadowing. The analysis revealed that a groundwater drain could be installed to stabilize the upgradient seasonal fluctuations, or also known as mounding, such that groundwater will not reach the ground surface and upset the hydrologic balance. The system will not mitigate shadowing impacts, but this should not be an issue because there are no wells located within the shadow zone. So this is to illustrate these points. Here's a figure from Mr. McGrain's analysis, which shows the results of the modeling. The contours show increases and decreases in water levels in feet. So this is with no groundwater drain. And the red contours show shadow impacts down gradient. The blue contours show mounding impacts up gradient. I'll give you a second to digest that. You can see that the potentially without the drain, we'll be talking about 2 feet or so of mounding, as well as decreases on the shadow side of approximately 2 feet also. So with the drain, it's a different story for the upgradient well. Modeling mounding with the slurry wall would entail a rise of about 2.5 feet. But with the slurry wall and the groundwater drain, it would actually be a decrease of about 1/2 foot. So with the difference of approximately 3 feet, pretty significant difference for the potential difference for the landowner up gradient. Down gradient, the drain has less impact. Like I said, the difference between with and without the drain is only, what's that, 4/100ths, about 1/2 an inch, 4/100ths of a foot. So the applicant's commitments for protecting groundwater include the following. The pit will be lined with a slurry wall to minimize impacts to the hydrologic system, including the alluvial aquifers along the South Platte River. The applicant is committed to building the recommended groundwater drain at the same time the slurry wall is constructed. This will mitigate upgrading impacts on groundwater and wells. As I discussed, it'll direct excess groundwater to the river. As-built drawings of the slurry wall and perimeter groundwater drain will be provided after construction. Or actually, the applicant must provide a detailed design before construction. That bullet's a little misleading. Anyway, this figure shows, you can see that the drain is the yellow line. And so because of the direction of flow, the drain just encompasses the southern part of the site from, you can see about here, if you follow my cursor, and then it's going to be a perforated drain down to the south end, be a solid pipe along the south end, and then another perforated drain for discharge of the water into the alluvium on the southeast corner. So you can see the slurry wall encompasses the whole site. That's the blue line, but the drain is, the yellow line is just along approximately 1/2 of the site, the upgradient side. So these 2 sections show the details of the reclamation of the pit, as well as the slurry wall and drain. On the right, you can see the slopes. You can see the 4.5 to 1 reclaim slope and 2 to 1 mining slope. There's also the slurry wall. You follow my cursor, and then the 12-inch diameter perimeter drain shown here on the right side of this figure. So then this detail over here that of the perimeter groundwater drain shows the aggregate and sand around the perforated pipe. It also shows some typical dimensions. We can come back to this if you want to get into the specifics of this, but I'm gonna move on. The next slide. Some additional commitments related to groundwater. The applicant committed to a monitoring program for water quantity and quality. 4 groundwater wells will be monitored on a quarterly basis. Baseline monitoring will include a minimum of 5 quarters prior to initiation of the project. Monitoring wells are located around the perimeter of the site, including 1 up gradient and 3 down gradient wells. Sampling parameters are based on Water Quality Control Commission's Reg 41. Mitigation triggers for groundwater levels have been set based on baseline seasonal levels. If these levels are exceeded, an investigation into the causes and impacts will be evaluated by DRMS and the applicant. If it is determined that the mine is having an impact, then additional mitigation measures will be required. So here's a figure of the wells. You can see MW1, MW2, and MW4 are the down gradient wells. Also, they are points of compliance. MW3 is the up gradient well. So the applicant's groundwater monitoring procedures will follow the USGS field manual and the groundwater sampling guide from EPA Region 9. The resulting data will be submitted quarterly to DRMS in a report that includes analysis of the data. I mentioned the wells, so water quality will be compared to the standards set by Water Quality Control Commission's Reg 41 and the baseline data collected prior to operations. The applicant is committed to complying with all conditions and recommendations provided by the Division of Water Resources. Regarding exposed groundwater and water rights, the applicant is committed to obtaining a well permit and a substitute water supply plan with DWR before the excavation reaches the groundwater tank. Per DWR, prior to obtaining a well permit, the applicant must conduct a field inspection of the site and document the locations of all wells within 600 feet of the permit area. The applicant must then obtain a waiver of objection from all well owners with wells within 600 feet of the permit area or request a hearing before the state engineer. So the division determined the application adequately demonstrated that disturbances to the prevailing hydrologic balance of the affected land and surrounding area and to quality and quantity of water and surface and groundwater systems, both during and after mining operations and during reclamation, will be minimized as required under Rule 3.1.6. The application included a groundwater monitoring program in accordance with 317 parent 7, which the division found to be appropriate for the proposed operation. The application addressed all requirements of Rule 647 regarding the identification and protection of hydrologic resources. They did that with Exhibit G. So based on the applicant's commitments related to notices, wildlife protection and protection of the hydrologic balance on July 11th, 2024, division staff determined the 112C permit application submitted for the Bernhardt Sand and Gravel Pit, file number M-2023-025, has satisfied the requirements of the statute 34-32.5-115, parent 4, and issued its recommendation to approve the application over objections. The division requests the board affirm staff's recommendation for approval of file number M-2023-025 over objections as detailed in the division's recommendation and rationale document, which was dated July 11, 2024, and in this presentation. So that's the end of my presentation. Open for questions.
I have a couple questions. One, this is Stiglmeyer questions. And the wells, they're for monitoring water, not for taking water out.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's still groundwater coming into the pond. Are there water rights associated with that water?
Well, that's where, yeah. Let me back up. When you said your comment about the wells, there's 4 wells that are on the. Now go up. These 4 wells that the applicant has drilled and proposes using as monitoring wells. Those are just monitoring wells. But I also discussed other wells, and they're required through DWR's rules to do a survey of all of the wells within 600 feet of the operation. And so then they have to make sure that they're not impacting those wells. And if they do impact them in the future, they'll have to mitigate those impacts. So, yeah, I just wanted to clarify the discussion on wells.
Just, it seems to me though, that if there's water coming into a reservoir, that's a significant amount of water that is sitting there getting
Yeah.
evaporated.
And that's
So
where
there's
they're,
loss of water.
yes, ma'am, and that's where their substitute water supply plan and their well permit,
Okay.
those requirements of DWR address those things.
Okay.
So that they're not in violation of any water rights issues. Yeah, I'm trying to get back to the mining plan. Where was that? Oh, I think it's in the other, anyway, you get the picture. I can go back to that map if you want, but there's a drain on the whole perimeter of the site to collect the water, and then they have to follow the rule, DWR's rules for that water.
And are they thinking about 11 years in the future when it could be hotter and more evaporation? Or is that?
Well,
just-
that's DWR's purview, not
Okay.
mine, so.
Russ Means for the division. I think the final reclamation with the construction of that slurry wall, that will isolate all of the groundwater from that pit. So it will be empty and they have to put water into, they'll have to have the water rights for the water that they put into that. So it's like a swimming pool, if you will. So all the groundwater that's already there won't be impacted and stuff from this operation in the final reclamation.
So where's the drain is?
That's for the
Big one.
local, that's
Yeah.
for the water that falls within the pit.
Yeah.
During a rain or snow melt event. The water that collects, falls directly on that pit, because there is going to be no runoff from outside. That's not completely true, because they're not going to have berms. There could be some runoff coming from the west side also. That could collect in that pit. So that's to collect surface runoff from the dewatering trenches for surface runoff. But like Russ said, the slurry wall will prevent groundwater from collecting in the pit. That'll be routed around towards the alluvium.
So
There's a drain on the outside of the slurry wall.
Yeah.
it's
Yes,
the delineation between water that falls or, collects within the impacted area. They have to mitigate that. They have to make sure that that's dealt with. So that's coming in. And then outside of that, you've got like the interceptor ditches. So that, yes, it's maybe within the perimeter of the mine or adjacent to the mine, but it's not being impacted by operations. So that you're trying to continue to keep as much of the balance going on while it's operational at the same time, but then not filling the pit back up with groundwater, although they're going to be obligated to have a reservoir there, but not with the groundwater.
Do we know who the storage is for? Or does it make a difference?
What the water storage is
Yeah.
for.
For the division, this is Russ Means, for the division and stuff, we don't necessarily look at the water rights and stuff for that at post reclamation of just the construction itself of the.
But it's gonna be municipal storage eventually.
It could be, yeah, a lot of that is what happens, stuff as the sites and stuff get closer to being finished and stuff, then different entities and stuff enter into conversations and stuff.
Yeah, WW Clyde and the DWR will have to
Yeah.
address that.
And
And
then,
if it's in the town of Milliken, if it's used by Milliken
Yeah.
in the future.
and then I had one just quick question, upstream perimeter drain. Where does that daylight? Or what happens to that?
The plan is to it won't actually daylight. There'll be a perforated pipe that the water will discharge into the alluvium of the river.
Mhm.
So it'll stay in the ground. It originates in the ground on the west side, travels around the south side of the pit,
So like an
and will
underground
discharge into the
infiltration
alluvium on the downgrade
Down?
side.
Underground.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong. AC.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Unimpacted water starting here, going around it, not through it.
It'll all sort of get concentrated there though. That's why they need it.
Say that again?
I said, as it goes around
Yeah.
the pit, it'll get concentrated on the east side. So they need an infiltration gallery to try and where you spread it out into the aquifer.
Yeah, well, it's not, concentrated is a relative term, I think, and Mr. McGrain can probably talk about this better than I can, but I think the intent of those perforated pipes on the downstream side is that it's perforated for hundreds of feet and it's going to discharge into the alluvium. Engineers use the orifice equation to figure out what that'll be. So I'm guessing that the holes are going to be smaller on the up gradient side and larger at the down gradient side. But all those details remain to be determined, like the actual sizing of that. This is what I showed you is more of a conceptual level design, and the applicant's required to give us a more detailed design with engineering calculations before they construct that.
Very good.
Other questions right now? Thank you.
I'll just do one more with
Yes, ma'am.
the water rights to hold all the water in the reservoir when it's completed. That's yet to be determined.
I can speak. to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Amy with the division. I just wanted to clarify, so like Rob pointed out, they do have to get a substitute water supply plan that covers temporary exposure. So that'll be their settling ponds, their dewatering trench, anything like that. Now, when they do first fill for the reservoir, I believe they have to get augmentation for that. I'm not sure, but it is something that they would work through with DWR, Division of Water Resources, prior to filling. Like Russ mentioned, a lot of times, when we approve, the post-mine land use, we may approve developed water storage or lined reservoir. We don't necessarily know what the end result, and in fact, they don't actually have to fill that to get release of the mine permit from us either. So a lot of times that is something that gets worked out later. Maybe they don't even have a purchase of the reservoir yet. That's something that's kind of worked out towards the end, but as long as they design it in the way that needs to be designed, they get their leak tests from DWR and the slurry wall, which is mitigation of the groundwater, that is approved by DWR. And so, yeah, I guess basically what I'm saying is that whenever they do first fill, that will be later at the end, when they're ready, getting close to release the site, or maybe even after they release the permit from us. And that's something that they would have to square away with Division of Water Resources, because there are water rights associated with that. And it may not be groundwater, but they do have to come up with water rights for that. But while they have the permit, we do require them to comply with DWR, and to comply with DWR during the permitting is just to have, or throughout life of mine, is to have that substitute water supply plan in place. Now, if they were exposing groundwater permanently, we would bond to backfill that. In this case, our mitigation is the slurry wall. So we are bonding for the slurry wall, which is mitigation of that exposed groundwater. So we'll be covered for the bond, and as far as the water rights, they'll be covered through DWR, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a dual thing there. If they didn't have a slurry wall, we'd be bonding to backfill. So this is considered a mitigation measure for us, one of the acceptable mitigation measures.
I just have a hard time with thinking, okay, 11 years from now, somebody decides, oh, well, I can't get good water rights. I'm not going to fill this with water. It's just going to be a pit.
Mm-hmm.
Then would we come in and say, no, you can't leave a pit. You need to.
Russ means for the division and stuff. If that were the case and stuff, and that they would have to do an amendment and stuff to change their post-mine land use from a water resource and stuff to a pit. And then that's where like Amy pointed out and stuff, there's a DWR requirements and stuff that are involved. They can't expose groundwater. We have had a few pits that have done that, and where we've had to go back in and have them backfill up above the water table. And that's a very expensive proposition and stuff and that. So we've had bonds and stuff that we've calculated out that are, several millions of dollars and stuff for a small pit. So, but that's the process. If they get to the end and with this and stuff, I think you're building this third wall and stuff right up front. So that's not an issue. But if we have a pit and stuff that wants to do that at a later date, those are the commitments and stuff that we put in place and stuff, is that they either have to build that or they have to backfill it. And so that's part of our considerations.
And yeah, just while we're thinking through this, it sounds to me in this sense, they're coming to the division first to get through your permitting processes, because typically that kind of at least sets the stage for a lot of the other questions. Even if we, you know, were to approve this today, there's still a whole host of other, you know, municipalities, counties, divisions that still need to look at all of this and assess all of those questions. We're focused on what we have jurisdictionally, you know, to oversee in this sense. It doesn't mean that if we say this looks like it's okay, that it just, you know, gets a pass for everything else, right? There's still a lot of analysis that goes on there, a lot of due diligence from the other, but typically the package that needs to be submitted for the division for the 112C is so robust that it's helpful to kind of get everything in order, because of, you know, these tease up a lot of other questions and work that needs to be done for this. So just keep that in mind when we're thinking through the applicant's presentation and other things. Other questions, just in terms of the presentation from the division at the moment?
It's in the county, right? It's not inside the town. It's in the county.
County?
It's inside Weld County. It's not inside Milliken's boundary.
That's correct.
Weld County, yeah.
Correct, yeah, it is actually annexed into the town.
Annexed
Is
into the town.
annexed into the
Okay,
town of
thank you.
Milliken. So they would issue a land use permit eventually.
Yes.
Okay, so from a time perspective, I definitely don't want to split any presentations in half, looking at the applicant here, because I want to make sure you have an opportunity to get some lunch. It's 11:25. You all are gonna have a presentation following, you know, up next. Do we want to do a half an hour? Does that give people enough time? I don't want to rush you guys. I'm going about noon. Should we go noon straight up, 35 minutes? Sound good? Come back here at noon, okay? Those of you on the phone will reconvene here. Please be on just a hair before noon for us. And with that, we will reconvene after lunch. Thank you. Okay, looks like we've got everyone back in the room. Anyone on the phone? Patrick, can you confirm you can hear us? You're back? Maybe he's not back yet. There he is. Can you
Yep.
hear us?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So now we will hear a presentation from the applicant. If any of you want to come up that are presenting. And let's make sure that your screen that you're presenting, if you are sharing a screen, shares on the feed. Just that little thing there. And this will be 15 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. And that's sharing. Well. I'm JC York with J&T Consulting. I'm the consultant for the applicant. And then I have with me here
Andy Carpenter on the aggregates area manager for WW Clyde & Company.
And I just wanted to go back through Rob's presentation here and just hit on some highlights here as far as the jurisdictional issues raised by the objecting parties. First, starting off with the notification process. We did post notices on the property, as you saw in the pictures that Rob provided. We also contacted the town of Milliken to make sure we were doing the public notice in their local paper, which was the Johnstown Breeze. We published that notice for 4 consecutive weeks, and we also sent that public notice to all the landowners, mineral interests, utility easement owners within 200 feet and the interior of the property. And these are the folks that are listed here that we sent those out to. And then it shows in highlights here where Cheryl and the other objector are highlighted there. I guess, other than that, on the notification, I think that's really it. We did comply with the rules and regs. Regarding the wild impacts to wildlife, we did do a threatened endangered species screening as well as wetlands study to determine what species and if there were going to be any impacts to those. Let me go to the information here. So we had the screening report, and then we also had a bald eagle nest evaluation, which we did confirm with CPW and actually had one of their representatives come out in the field and just make sure that everything that ERC looked at was confirmed by them and agreed upon. Getting into, I guess, the location of the eagle nest here. Again, just on this map showing where the bald eagle nest that was destroyed that was adjacent to our property, and then the active nest that's further north and over a half mile away from the permit boundary. So there is no impact there. The 400-foot corridor that we originally had everything going to the permit boundary, as you see on some of the maps that we provided, and then we moved that back to this the red line's the permit boundary. We moved that corridor back to the 400-foot limit, one for increasing that corridor width for wildlife, and then also giving us the option where we don't need to provide a spillway to the river, to keep far enough back from a flooding perspective based on the rules and regs that DRMS has, where they've adopted that 400-foot buffer to keep away from the river in regard to flooding potential.
Just on that picture, just because I didn't ask it when the division was up here, is that black straight line to the upper left? Is that rail? or-
That's the railroad.
That is railroad.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Union Pacific Railroad that's adjacent to the property. Another thing that we are committing to doing for the wildlife as well is do another raptor survey prior to any excavation. So with 30 days prior to any excavation. So that'll be more than likely prior to the construction of the slurry wall. That would be the first thing that would be done if we're approved on the mining part of things. The objections regarding the hydrologic balance. So we had a couple things as far as the flooding, which, as we stated before, that 400-foot mining setback is going to be maintained so that we limit the risk of capture from any type of flood from the river. The other thing that we are doing is when the pit's reclaimed, and I think that map is right here. We're having a 200-foot wide riprap rundown channel. And the reason for that placement and that location is that's the location that during the 2013 flood, that's where water came around the old river levee that is on the south side of this property and came through this property. So we strategically placed it there. So if that happens again, we have risks covered there where we won't, one, damage the reservoir or the slurry wall and the mine itself. Moving on to the groundwater piece of this. We did do a groundwater model, and as Rob showed you before, this was the impact from the slurry wall where we have up to a 2-foot rise on the west side of the slurry wall and then about 6 inches on the south side. And then we have the shadowing effect on the north side. The north side, most of that property that's impacted there is also owned by WW Clyde. So there's really no issue there. We do have a mitigation measure, and that's the groundwater drain to basically keep the mounting from occurring on the south side and keeping the seasonal groundwater levels the same as they have been without, a wall in. This is the map of the groundwater drain. So on the west side, you'll have a basically perforated drain that allows water to come in. And then on the south side, the drain will be solid wall pipe there. So at that point, the water is traveling through that solid wall pipe, coming to the east side of the slurry wall, and then goes back into a perforated pipe where it will exfiltrate. So the water will basically release back into the alluvium on that side. And right now, the final design isn't done, but if it's required to increase the length of that drain for more exfiltration that's needed, then we may increase that and take it longer and go further north with it. But this is what, based on the modeling initially, is the layout that we've come up with. And this is, again, just the kind of the standard details of what that groundwater drain will look like on the outside of the slurry wall, placing it at approximately 15 feet off the slurry wall, and then at a depth of 5 feet plus or minus, so that it one will gravity drain around the slurry wall and back to the east side. The groundwater monitoring, as we discussed before, we have 4 monitoring wells, 3 of which are compliance wells, and then 1 on the upgradient side that is just one that we measure and sample from all of them, and then provide that information for 5 quarters prior to mining, so that we have a good baseline for what that is. And then our groundwater trigger levels are basically plus or minus 2 feet of the seasonal groundwater levels. And with that, I guess, I think that's the main thing on the objections. I don't really have anything else other than maybe to clarify a couple things on some questions that the board had earlier, and that was on the water storage itself. So WW Clyde does own water rights, and their plan currently is they will utilize this storage for their uses. They have several other mine sites, and so one of the things that we run into is we always need augmentation water for the losses that we have with the production of the gravel, and then dewatering or evaporation. So we can meet those demands or losses by utilizing our own water rights, and then getting that water back to the river to keep the river whole and other water rights users whole. And with that, if there's any other questions, I'll entertain any questions you may have. Thanks, I appreciate this and appreciate you taking the time to come down. On the eagle's nests, I noticed in some of the correspondence from the objectors that they mentioned a eagle sitting in a nest at that moment. Was that one of those 2 sites there, or? I don't know. That was from Michael Janasico. I asked, but I didn't get a response back from him on that. I assume it was, but based on our studies and what we had corresponded with CPW on, he just said he saw one that's there now. I don't know which one he was talking about. There's another nest further to the south, I guess, that's like 2 miles. But Mr. Janasico would have been north, so it could have been the north one that he was talking about. And then I noticed in Parks and Wildlife's comment letter, they mentioned wildlife friendly fencing. Is their area going to be fenced off, and what does that look like then? So currently it is fenced. If we build any new fence, then we will use that wildlife friendly fence, which is smooth wire fence, and then the ground bottom strand wire to be 18 inches or so above the ground. Is the river corridor currently fenced? There's places where it's fenced and places where it's unfenced. Is that just kind of the standard 3 strand? I think it's like that's 4 strand chest high. Yeah.
It tends to meander on and off of our property in places, so it's adjacent landowners as well.
Thanks. No more.
Other questions? So it does sound like you did the formal notification of the neighbors, but
Yes.
then you've also had more casual conversations,
Yes.
dialogue with them
And-
ongoing.
And some of the exhibits that I provided were just emails back and forth to them, and then we've had phone calls with Cheryl and Jim both.
Any other questions? Anything else you wanted to add based on that discussion?
I don't think so.
Thank you. So Kami, just looking at that, it looks like we've just got the one at the moment, correct? So we have the full 49.
She wants it.
Okay. Cheryl, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, sounds good. So per the pre-hearing order, the objectors have 45 minutes that they asked for to make presentations. You are one of what was originally 3 objectors, now 2. I'm not sure how much time, if you guys had discussed internally that you needed, or if you're giving a full presentation. Do you know if that's changed at all, given that Jim is not on the line?
No, I think, we haven't talked about that. I haven't talked to Jim, so maybe he wants to start, I guess, and then I can say something. I don't know.
We don't believe he's on the line.
Oh, he is not there. Oh, he didn't come back.
That's,
Okay.
but as far as we can tell,
Okay.
we haven't seen him. We didn't see him when the division was giving their presentation, and we haven't seen him come back after the lunch break.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, as far as I am concerned, it seems like things have been addressed and I am fine with everything. The only other thing I thought of, and I don't know if this is a place to address it, is that you guys meaning WW Clyde, are probably going to have problems with trespassers. And then what I am seeing am thinking is gonna happen is that it's gonna go from their property onto ours. So the one thing that I think they really need to do is where they go in and out of their property, when they're not there, a gate probably needs to be there locked, because a gravel pit was put in right to the north of my and my 2 sisters' property, and we had problems with people coming over onto our property. And then when you have mounds of dirt and I don't know what you call it, dips and hills and dips, whatever, that is a favorable thing for bikers, 4-wheelers, kids to ride in and out and on top of those things. So,
Yeah.
and other than that, everything that I was concerned about has been addressed.
Great, we appreciate that. And the division can maybe answer the question about the gate. Anything that would kind of be standard procedure for something. Or did you want to answer that?
Honestly, yeah, I mean, we're 100% on board with that. As company policy, locked up any production facility when we're not there in operation. Up to this point, we've locked 3 gates, and installed security cameras out there as well. She's correct. Before that, there was some trespassing concerns. We alleviated that. We worked with the town of Milligan as well. We've improved the situation and we'll continue to do so.
Okay, and I'm imagining, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think she could probably.
Oh, Cheryl, could you hear him?
A little bit,
We can have
it
him
was
step
kind
up.
of faint.
He's gonna step up to the microphone. He was sitting in the audience.
Sorry, guys.
And he'll just repeat what he said.
Yep, sorry, Cheryl.
Okay.
So, yeah, we
That's
would
okay.
certainly remain committed to locking up our facility, our production facility, when we're not in operation. That's company policy and that would not change. As you're probably somewhat aware, we've done that in other areas of the property, installed security cameras, and we've drastically improved the situation so far.
Great, thank you.
And yes, you have done that, and thank you very much. It was very much appreciated. Because the situation that did happen was very dangerous last year. Somebody could have gotten hurt. So unfortunately, there are people out there and kids that parents don't take care of or watch them or whatever. So.
And so
Anyway.
you're aware, we work with the town of Milliken Police Department. They have the coordinates, they have the gate codes to the property in case folks need to get on, and we've made a few phone calls for trespassers. And they've been out on calls and fixed some problems.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is this the scale of an operation where when you're truly in business, typically there's gonna be someone there most hour?
Yeah, so right now the plans are roughly 6 to 7 employees on site during production. So you'll have folks that are around the equipment where there's dangerous issues or anything like that for
Mhm.
security. And then, there'll be a scale house that monitors and controls access in and out of the production facility.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright,
And I'm sorry. And are you going to be open 24 hours a day? Is there going to be somebody there all the time? Because I am just letting you know that gravel pit to the north of mine and my two sisters' property, during the weekends, they were not in production and there were problems. I had a lot of problems, and there is a fence there, and the kids would cut the fence and come over onto my property and go and do circles out in our wheat field. And that's how we make our money through the year. It's kind of hard when they damage your field. So I'm just letting you know that if somebody is not there, that the gates do need to be closed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And then I think from a jurisdictional standpoint, you're working with the city, they're aware, that's kind of where your first point of contact would be, should there be a situation.
Correct, right? Go through the proper channels. But our security cameras are monitored by myself and another person 24/7. I get the text messages in the middle of the night if there's an issue, and then we deal with it.
Great. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up in your presentation, Cheryl?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
So same thing, you still have party status, even though you're the only one left standing. What we're gonna do now is the division's going to go through their rebuttal statement. And then you, as the objector, still have time allotted if you have anything that you want to add or chime in on. So you still have another opportunity to talk at that point. And then when we do closing statements, you'll have another opportunity to talk at that point as well. So if something comes up in any of these other, the rebuttals or the closing, you'll still get an opportunity to open up the line to you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll hear rebuttal from the division.
This is Scott Schultz on behalf of the division. I think, given the limited issues that are left, that will pass on rebuttal.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions that the board still has.
Any questions? Just general question. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Does the applicant have anything they would like to add as a rebuttal statement? Or actually, I'm out of order now. It's actually the objector. Sorry, now I'm out of order here. Actually, Cheryl, it's your opportunity if you have anything you want to say in rebuttal.
No, nothing.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll just ask if the applicant has anything to say in rebuttal.
In rebuttal, no, closing.
No, okay. All right, moving along here. The division, do you have a closing statement you'd like to make?
Not really. We don't have anything additional to add, unless Amy can correct me, but we're just gonna reiterate that we feel like the applicant complied with all of the rules through the adequacy process. They addressed certain things that we had brought up. We had 2 or 3 dozen adequacy items during our adequacy process that they addressed all of those sufficiently. And so that's just basically it. Just we recommend approval of this file number M-2023-25 over objections, as we detailed in our rationale and we've talked about today.
After that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl, this is if the objector has any closing statements you'd like to make?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant, if you have any closing statements you'd like to make, come on up.
In closing, I guess just be brief. I appreciate the time and everyone's effort here through this. It's been a long process and we're glad that we are here to speak. I just want to say too that, we remain committed to working with our neighbors and our community members moving forward, regardless of any situation, right? Want to be good members of the community like we are.
I don't have anything further, just hope that, based on today's discussions that, the board will approve this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Closed testimony. Yeah. Okay. Cheryl, you can still hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Do you want to maybe explain why that would, does it matter?
Yeah, Cheryl, so this is Chuck Hoyman. I'm the attorney for the board. I know you mentioned that you felt like your concerns had been addressed during your presentation time, and just wanted to see if you wanted to go ahead and withdraw your objection at this point. I mean, I think right now you're the only person with party status left. And if you no longer have any objections, I think that would certainly has the potential to streamline things. If you don't have any remaining objections and are amenable to withdrawing your objections.
Sure, I can withdraw them. I just, I don't have any problem. I just wanted to make sure that, our property was not impacted by this. So, my objections have been addressed and, yes, I can withdraw them.
Is that as much of a formal process that she needs to do in order to capture that? Okay. Thank you, Cheryl.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you to the applicant, because this can be a very different outcome if you don't work with your neighbors in a certain way, right? So this is why this matters. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, whole lot less fun. And then I get to use the gavel again. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so with that, I think we can, testimony can still be open in the sense that if the board has questions for anyone, but then after we close testimony, if we do any deliberation, you can't go back into the division or the applicant to ask questions. So now is your opportunity, while it's still open, to ask any questions you still have remaining.
I don't have it.
Okay.
The only question, you said it's annexed into Milliken. When was that? Was that pretty recent?
That was in 2022. So it was during the time that WW Clyde was previously IHC Scott. We're working with the previous landowner. They did that annexation, closed on the property, and also had an approved conditional use permit for mining through the city of Milliken.
Oh, okay. So that was the intent. The annexation had the
Yes.
use in mind.
Mm-hmm. And we still have to go through other permit processes through the city of Milliken to finalize things, but that was the initial. Yep.
Very good.
Good question. Mr. Mock, any questions?
I do not. Thank you, Chair.
Patrick on Zoom, any questions?
I'm all good, thanks.
You good? Okay. I don't have any, so I think we're comfortable closing testimony at this point. For deliberation in this matter, or if there's not a whole lot of deliberation left, does anyone have I'd like to entertain a motion, and I just want to note that one thing just in terms of wording would be that, just the change in status essentially of the with objections piece.
Yeah.
Trying to see how it's, I guess it's not, yeah, So it would be fine. I think it's okay as worded, even though we removed the objectors piece, so. Would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 112C permit application for Bernhardt Sand and Gravel Pit, file number M-2023-025.
I'll second that motion.
Baker second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to reaffirm appreciation to Ms. Gastins for joining us today and hanging out via the phone line and being engaged in the process. Also appreciate the staff for their work, and then the operator for working with the landowners. I did read some of those emails there, and it looked like there was a significant opportunity to try and reach out, back out to them about some of the questions. So we'll be supporting the application this morning, but just really appreciate all of those involved.
Great, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, we will approve the 112C permit for M 2023-25. Again, thank you very much to the applicant. Best of luck in the rest of your processes, and I hope you continue to engage with your neighbors and everyone else involved just as successfully as you have here. So sounds great. And thanks to the division for really thorough bunch of information, and thank you, Cheryl, for being part of the process. Okay,
You are welcome.
we have a discussion item number 8. Yes.
Yeah, just. This is Russ Beach for the division. So quick discussion item with the board. Last month, we had presented to the board a draft of our guidance for dam and reservoir and pond construction and clean out activities. And so we had asked for some, if the board and stuff to take a look at that and give us any suggestions or questions or whatever. So with that, there was a request for some additional time for the board members to review that. So staff's back in front of you today and stuff to see if you had any issues with that prior to us putting this out on our website. The intent here and stuff and that is just to get some general information out to the public and to some of our constituents and stuff that are involved in these activities to try to help guide when we're looking at these activities, exactly what it is we're need to take a look at. So
Didn't we have that one a while ago?
yes,
It was like a county road and there was a pond and
yes, yeah, and that's what facilitated
Right.
this discussion.
everyone
and
thought
stuff.
they were doing the right thing,
Yes.
but then if you looked at it with this laser focus,
Yeah.
theoretically
Yeah,
weren't. And so even though that was not remotely the intention.
that is correct,
Okay.
yeah. And then, without getting into much detail and stuff and that, it's site specific. And so in one case and stuff, it might be one thing, but then, with looking at all the other, details and stuff, it might go down a different road. So, but that's this is trying to help and stuff, at least guide people and stuff in the right direction. The biggest one being to please reach out to the division and have a
Right.
discussion prior to doing things, but that's
Right.
neither here nor there.
You're not really going down the path of, is it mining, but you'll be able to kind of have a conversation with them to,
Yes, yeah.
this sounds like it's this, or this sounds like it's this.
Right.
Okay.
So I would add to that, and I don't know if this is the same instance or not, but this is one of the few times that I was contacted as a board member for the Conservation Board related to issues with DRMS or whatever, and not being clear on what was mining or what they were cleaning canals. It was an agricultural question. So I think this helps with that. They never called back. I offered to figure out and try and help them, but they never called back. But I think this is almost exactly an answer to what their question is.
And just so you're aware, we have had some inquiries and stuff and that from legislatures and also from some county officials and stuff on some activities and stuff related directly to agricultural things. And there again, it's site specific. We're not interested in regulating somebody who's trading a truckload of dirt for a cow or something like that. What we're looking at and stuff is these very large projects that are introducing material into the marketplace. That has to take a different look at that. And so when we're still having further discussions on that for sure. And that, but those kind of, that's where our line is and stuff there.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure the board will understand, especially the soil conservation, if somebody's removing, 6 inches of topsoil over 100 acres, and selling it, that's a little bit different than. So,
Yeah. Anyway, this is actually good.
appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, well, with that, we'll post this out here and it's always amendable. That's the good thing. It's not a policy, it's just a guidance. So, down the road and stuff, we have further discussions and we need to add from it or clarify more and stuff, we'll be more than happy to do that. And then the final thing and stuff, which is, just for an informational thing, I think we, I've discussed this stuff briefly, but, we're, embarking on some open forums and stuff to discuss our public notice process. That was posted on our website yesterday for the meetings and stuff and I don't have it in front of me, but it'll be November and the end of January and April. They're spread out so that people have plenty of time and stuff to think about it and participate. But we also developed a online fillable form, so somebody can leave their email and leave us just sounds of the city. But there's a fillable form and stuff somebody can fill out and tell us what their concerns are. Hopefully, we're looking for, we've heard a lot of concerns from all different, the board certainly has, from everything that I don't get mail to I don't get email. And when we ask about what's the best way and stuff to do this and stuff, we haven't got a lot of feedback there. They just don't like it one way or the other. But we're looking for solutions and stuff there, because that's always seems to be a concern for the board. So we're looking at that, and that's live on our website now. And as we move forward, you guys have the dates and stuff. You can sit in via YouTube and stuff and listen. We may have 2 people, we may have 200 and that, but that's neither here nor there and stuff. And that we want to listen to people and see if we can find some different avenues and stuff to modernize that process and stuff where we can.
Mr. Means,
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed, I should probably know this. Appreciate you all doing this. One, is there like a straw dog option that you all have put forward that they're responding to, or are we just opening this up for input?
We're just opening it up for input. Yeah, and it's we're going to be sending out an email notification to all of our operators and stuff and that, and we'll also be sending out emails and stuff to some of our past stakeholders and stuff for those conversations. So,
And as part of this, are we also looking at the distance by which the operator needs to inform adjacent or area?
that's we're not specifically looking at that. Part of that and stuff is it's based in statute. So we're looking at what's in statute that at some time somewhere we might have to take a look at that. And the other part of it and stuff that's is what can we do more immediately and stuff for like in rulemaking or something. Nothing is we don't have specific agenda for that yet and that, but that's part of what we're doing here is gathering facts and information and stuff to help guide us in that.
The 200 feet is in statute?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, that's set in there and just, and that was the act and stuff and that was to notify people that we're gonna be immediately impacted and stuff by this, not from other issues and stuff that have come up and stuff over time and everything else. So that's the difference and stuff there. Mining operation doesn't quite have the same impacts of say a gas rig or something like that, and that. So, but that was the intent there and stuff is somebody would have the physical harm and stuff from a mining operation. That was what that buffer was put in there originally for.
And I have sent all of you guys the Zoom invites. It was a couple of weeks ago, so you have the dates.
Yeah.
for that as well.
Yeah, and like sitting in on Zoom and stuff, I don't think we have to do any public notice because they're individually, they're not talking to each other or anything like that. So I think we're good at that stuff. So.
And it's a public meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Yeah. So, all right.
You're not, board members aren't going to be conducting board business. It's a
Right.
listening thing. Like you're welcome to attend like any other member of the public. It's not a board meeting that would require like posting an agenda and, kind of the regular notice requirement.
And our thoughts and stuff is kind of similar to what Rob did today and stuff, that we'll have a brief PowerPoint presentation that kind of explains the act and the rules and where and that, so that people understand what we're looking at specifically. And then, like I said, we'll open it up and just for to listen, take notes. And from there and stuff, and that maybe develop some data and stuff that we can share with the board, and then also moving forward, discuss paths and stuff, and that if we need to make some changes or whatever. And with that, that's all I have for today.
Any other discussion items?
This is Patrick. I'd just like to commend you all. Haven't been on the board for a long time, but ever since I started, I remember this coming up about just public notice and finding that all other avenues, via online, just understanding newspapers aren't as popular as they used to be. More people are online more than ever. So yeah, I think the attempt is showing people of Colorado that you really want to be transparent and let people know what's going on and try to let people know about processes especially if it's something in their neighborhood, in their community. So hats off to you all. Really cool to see.
Agreed.
Madam Chair, is Mr. Ortiz, does the board know about your status?
That's gonna be my next item.
Okay, so yes, we all do.
I'm not sure.
We're getting a head nod from Cammie that yes, we do. So I think you all know, or it was conveyed that Mr. Ortiz has got a new job. Congratulations. Couldn't think of anybody better to represent the region down there, and look forward to working with you in the future. But just on behalf of DNR, really appreciate all of the time and talent that you've dedicated to this board. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and work with you. And you've made some significant contributions. Always look forward to your questions, and just want to say that we hope we'll certainly see you around. And now you can join that public meeting and really give us your 2 cents.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mock. Yeah, it's been an amazing experience working for a local nonprofit in the San Luis Valley, and then getting opportunities like this to serve on the state board and learn from you all as leaders and engaged community members. So just really appreciate you all, extending the hand to help me learn and offer guidance, acting as chair and everything like that. I truly believe you guys have the heart of, making sure business can happen in our state, but also taking care of our wildlife, natural resources simultaneously. That's a hard thing to do. But my experience here is the board, staff, our attorneys, Chuck, everyone has really been shown like what a leader you are in the country when it comes to smart, pragmatic natural resource management that allows industry still to thrive in this transition that we know there is no panacea, that we need to keep our options open for energy and mineral access. And so yeah, just really humbled. And yeah, I'll miss attending these meetings quite a bit. I wish I could have been there in person, but trying to wrap up some things. So hopefully see you all soon if I'm ever in Denver, and would love to stay in touch in some capacity. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Patrick, just a huge congratulations on your next opportunity. I'm thrilled. I think this is wonderful for the San Luis Valley and for Colorado. So great for you. And yeah, just been really, really great getting to know you. And I very much appreciate your thoughtful questions and your perspective. And yeah, I have a feeling we'll all be crossing paths with you in some capacity.
Yeah.
In the future. So thank you, and enjoy this next adventure.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Nell, Madam Chair. Thank you.
That frees up a conservation seat on the board. So I would encourage, if any of you know of anyone or Patrick, if you've got somebody in mind, please send them my way or Michael's way as we kind of look to fill that seat as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll definitely put some feelers out here in the valley. I think it'd be great to get someone from here again if possible. Just to have that wide representation. So I'll definitely spread the word throughout my networks.
Any other discussion before we move on to public comment? No? Amy, do we have any public comment? We do not. Okay. Do we have any need for executive session discussions?
No, we do not.
Right. Once again, Patrick, thank you. We'll see you around. And with that, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Adjourn? So moved. Anybody? Come on, Karen, you've been so good at all your motions.
Yeah, that's this
I'll make a motion to
You
adjourn.
can do this one. All right. Second, okay. Thank you, everyone, for a productive meeting and for the work you did to make it a productive meeting. Thank you to the division for that. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Best of luck to y'all. Take care.
Thanks, Patrick. We'll see you around.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yes.